Hello and welcome. You are listening to Elden Kings, an Elden Ring discussion. I am Gideon the Half Knowing, and joining me tonight to talk about his artistic creations and videos on YouTube is Matthew Shezmen. Welcome to the Roundtable Hold, Matthew.
Thank you so much for having me. It's amazing to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, it's always great to have a new face at the Roundtable Hold.
Thank
How are
you.
you doing today?
Pretty good. I am melting in Italy, which is kind of weird to say, but yeah, really, really melting with the heat.
Yeah,
I hope it's not as bad there.
it's pretty hot here, but we've thankfully there was a storm that blew over last night, so it's a bit humid, so it's a bit of a relief
Ah,
from
okay,
the
like a little bit of coolness. You're in the east coast, right?
yeah, east coast of the United States, so right
Nice,
near a lot
nice.
of water.
Okay. Yeah, I've been there like many, many years ago, so it was really nice.
hmm Pretty place, lots to see.
Absolutely.
Obviously, this is an Elden Ring podcast, but you have a lot of experience
Hells
of
yeah.
from software and everything else in general. There's a lot of points to jump off from, but maybe we could start with your history with the From Software series.
Oh,
What
yes.
game did you start with? What stuff like that?
Absolutely. Okay, so what happened is so funny to me because I had a friend that was talking to me about DS1, and at the time it's kind of weird, but the thing is that I was never into medieval fantasy too much because I thought it was kind of like formulaic. It's such a trope of fantasy to be that typical Western medieval. And so this guy, this friend of mine, this actually very close and nice friend of mine, he was like going on and on about Dark Souls and stuff. And he was someone that would play, back in the day, Baldur's Gate and Neverwinter Nights, those kind of games that I never got into them too much, but I know the history behind them. So seeing him talking so much about it was like, maybe it's too, I don't know, too fantasy generic for me. And so he was talking to me about Titanite, like Demon Titanites. I was like, whatever, like kind of listening passively. And then one day I did a LAN party with my friends. I think it was like 2000 and maybe 14 or something like that. And so while we did the LAN party in the living room, which is by the way the same living room that you see in the parodies, like exactly the same. My friends were kind of like playing Dark Souls, and between them, just because they were nerding out about it. And so they decided to fight to basically in like the hour that we had available to get to the gargoyles in Dark Souls 1. Okay. And so it was like this kind of challenge between them. Hey, let's see if we can get to the gargoyles.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I was like, okay, whatever. So I guess I'll watch you guys when you do it because I don't know too much about Dark Souls, and I thought it was kind of gimmicky the fact that it's so difficult. So I was like, kind of skeptical looking at them. And so they got to the area, the parish, under the parish, right? And so they were trying to kind of like how do you say it, like avoid the zombies that are like the traps that are before the gargoyles before you go up the stairs, right? Like the ladder. And so I was like kind of scoffing, like, yeah, this game, it tries so hard to be difficult. And so they got to the boss fight, and I think they had the halberd, the one that is super powerful because they got it from the Black Knight. Or maybe they had like a weapon that was like a claymore that was really good. So I look at them and they continue to fail, because they get killed by the gargoyles. And so I was like, okay. Then I take the gamepad. I never played at that point. I never played Dark Souls ever. I take the gamepad, and not only I was able to go through like the zombies perfectly, without being touched, but I also almost killed the gargoyles. And so I was like, wow, okay. And so I was like, that was kind of interesting, because I noticed that it was like a chess battle kind of deal. Like it's a very methodic, and I thought they had something cool about it. And so like after a while, I was like, okay, but I don't know. I still think I'm not too much into it. And so basically, a couple years later, one of my friends, who looks like the guy in the parody with the big hair, one of these friends who was also there during the gargoyle gargoyle situation, he showed me a trailer of Dark Souls 3, and that was 2016 probably. And it was one of the trailers that they released, up to the game's release, that had like some kind of music, like some copyrighted music. And the trailer was so beautiful that I realized like, oh, wait a minute, this is not just some generic, kind of MMO generic fantasy. This is like actually kind of dark. And then I realized that it was basically in the same vein as something like Berserk, the manga anime.
Yeah, yeah.
So I realized that it had something more kind of poetic and more beautiful and dark and not only just generic fantasy. And so thanks to this trailer, which I don't remember the name of the trailer exactly, but it was so beautiful. It was showing basically all the locations like slowly with like the camera panning. And it got me so intrigued, and I was like, "This is so decadent and beautiful that I need to play this game." And so I bought it, and then I loved it immediately, and I was hooked, but not in the way how can I say? Like I was basically raptured by the exploration, and also the difficulty, and that changed my life kind of, because the game is so damn beautiful. So yeah, I finished the game and I was already doing parodies at the time. I think I did the Fallout parody, Metal Gear, and The Witcher. And then I was like, okay, I need to do a parody about this game. And so just the ideas came so easily, because the game kind of makes it easier for you to make a joke because of how dark and ridiculously, dreadful the situations are. So that's basically the idea, where it when I started.
That's a really nice story. Like it has all of the emotional hits that you need, you know?
Yup. Yup, yup, yup.
I like how
And by
the
the way,
real life
honestly,
and oh yeah.
I know I was just saying that I got super lucky with the gargoyles. I was just lucky. It's just a typical thing. Even with Melania, when I fought her the first time, I did better than any other tries after. So that with the gargoyles, that situation was just complete luck. you know?
I totally get that. There's something about those first encounters where you play really carefully and you try to observe, and then like after that you just throw your head at the wall and it's like
It's so true. It's so true. Oh my god.
I like how the real life influences, your friend, the living room, they sort of bleed into how you write those parodies. That's like a sort of
Yes,
interesting
yes.
under the hood look.
Yes, I tend. It's true. I tend to embellish a little bit because of the fact if I keep it too realistic, maybe some of the elements that come from reality they're not as appealing. So I kind of the birthday party thing that was not a thing. I bought the game on my own. But it's kind of like it captures the essence of the idea. So some things are kind of changed, but it's the idea is true. That I
Yeah.
was kind of. They told me to try it.
Art embellishes life to make it more clear.
Exactly. Yes.
No, I mean that's cool. So, is Dark Souls 3 still one of your favorite games because you started with it and had such a good reaction, or have you like since moved on to like other favorites as you played more
Uh,
of the series?
so the games overall, the Souls games, you mean?
Yeah, I guess the Souls or like Sekiro
Yeah,
or
yeah.
Elden Ring. Yeah, that
Okay,
section.
so Sekiro was kind of weird because I was not too much into the Sengoku era, but because it again has the elements of dark kind of interpretation of that aspect, and also the combat is more up my alley. I would say that Sekiro is I don't know, it's on its own. It's like a beast of its own, and I loved it. But I would say just out of by heart, I don't know how to say it. By heart, I suppose even Elden Ring has a little bit of that Celtic style that is not exactly what I like too much, but I still like the I don't know, like how it re-elaborates different I don't know how to explain, like cultures, I suppose. It's not just like if, for example, you take God of War. God of War is obviously Celtic kind of style, right? Or Viking. No, well, not Viking. Sorry, it's like Celtic, right?
Yeah, Celtic,
Um,
Norse mythology in the reboot.
Norse mythology, yes. And so Elden Ring instead has elements of it. So the fact that it doesn't go too obvious, and it's more re-elaborated in an interesting way, I also like that. But still, it's not exactly what I like. And so I suppose like Dark Souls 3 would be more in line with what I like in general. And I played it a lot. I played it more than Elden Ring, also because it's older and we got two DLCs. But yeah, I think that between all of them, I'd say that, for example, Dark Souls 1 is very fascinating and it's very like meditative. There's just something about it that feels special. I don't know. Dark Souls One has like a very I don't know. It's almost like you're in a meditation state, or like every NPC is very like the game tends to be um, as an atmosphere that even the other games by adding stuff kind of it blur that essence a little bit, you know. And so
Yeah.
like staring at a bonfire in DS1 has some feeling of like actually being that undead, you know, a player. And Dark Souls 3 certainly has the same vibe, you know, but Dark Souls 1 has something truly special, you know. And so I would put maybe Dark Souls 1 in terms of the atmosphere as at the top. And for example, Bloodborne, I love it, but it's and I will put it at the top in terms of lore. It's the best lore, the best story. You can basically think about it for hours. I can be in my bed and thinking about Bloodborne for hours. You know, it doesn't happen with the other games too much. So like Bloodborne, I would put it at the very top as lore and story. Gameplay, I would put Elden Ring and Dark Souls 3 at the top as well, but not as much with the story. Sekiro would be less interesting story wise, but amazing gameplay on its own. And Dark Souls 1 is the one that has the best kind of atmosphere, but it lacks in terms of, you know, the gameplay was kind of clunky, you know. Same for Dark Souls 2. Dark Souls 2, I have a weird relationship with as well, because I feel like it lost somewhat, even if it's a good game, of course, but it doesn't have, and for me it's important, you know, the essence, the vibe, you know. And so Dark Souls 1, even though it has an amazing vibe, the fact that it's kind of old, it's kind of difficult to play. And the Demon Souls, I have to say I played some parts of the original, and I haven't played the remake yet. But I think it's probably in line with Dark Souls 1 in terms of the atmosphere. So overall, I would say that the one that I like more to play would be Dark Souls 3, yes. But I just want to stress the fact that to me, every one of these games has something special, you know? So I'm not discarding one completely because maybe this one has better lore. This one has better locations, you know? So to me, it's not like I have a super favorite. I like aspects of each one.
That's a really good answer. I honestly, I agree a lot with like
Very
trying to find.
meandering, but
We love meandering though. It's a podcast. What else are we going to
nice.
do?
Hells yeah.
But yeah, like I really agree. Like there's certain aspects of each game that make them different, and it's that differentiation that makes it like really cool. You know, like one of the reasons that I
Mm-hmm.
sort of like the series as a whole over like, you know, God of War, for instance, or Assassin's Creed is that I feel like
Mm-hmm.
everything that Souls or From Software tries is somewhat different every time, and I really appreciate seeing the iterations and sort of seeing like
Yes.
they're trying something new. It's fresh.
Yeah, like I don't know, they have something that makes it feel less artificial. Even though sometimes the games can be kind of like clunky in terms of the glitches and the shortcomings, there's something that is so true about them that is like even if there's a mistake, you're like, well, that's Miyazaki's way, you know. Not that I'm brainwashed because I'm very critical about games and I roll my eyes when I see problems, but I feel like even like shortcomings in these games tend to be per- like made on purpose to maybe expand on other things. And of course, you know, I'm going to, especially with my parodies, I tend to bash a lot. Like even this new parody for Elden Ring, there are jokes that are so against, you know, kind of like not against, but kind of like poking at Miyazaki that they would never share my video because I'm completely like shitting on them all the time, but with love, obviously, you know, because otherwise I would never spend 9 months to work on something like this because I love it to death. But the point is that I'm very critical. I use these cartoons also to be critical and say, yes, these mini bosses are copy and pasted and sucks, you know? But at the same time, it doesn't change the fact that I still enjoy the game so much, you know, because I would say that in my play style, I am the type of guy that wouldn't necessarily find the other Astel, you know, because I play the game very thoroughly, but not so thoroughly that I'm going to find there's another Godskin Duo or stuff like that, you know, because I don't do everything. So to me, that I am more than a casual, you know, but not super hardcore. those problems are not as evident, but it's obligatory to make fun of the fact that the bosses are copy and pasted because yeah, I could totally see that. Even in my playthrough I saw copy and pasted stuff, and I'm not gonna, how do you say when you don't pull your punches, I think in English.
Yeah, you're not gonna pull your punches. You're not gonna be like
Yeah, yeah.
soft-hearted in your criticism.
Yeah, I'm not gonna ignore the problems, because it's also fun, it's a good source of material to make fun, but it's always like not to hate. It's always because I love the franchise so much and I want it to be better when it's not as good as it could be.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. And like your Elden Rings video, it starts with like that little scene with Miyazaki and the cloning bats, right?
Yep.
Yeah. It's
Yes.
pretty funny. And like it's like you say, it's a very valid criticism. I think it goes sort of both ways, like obviously building something like this, like making Elden Ring obviously
Compromises.
is yeah, exactly. Compromises. It's such a huge game. Like you have to fill it with something, and like they sort of you see that like sort of
Yeah.
like bloat in content. Like even like the way that you picking up a crafting material at the end of a dungeon. It doesn't feel great, but you understand that there's nothing
Yep.
else they could have put there. It's
Yeah, I totally get that. And I think that even if you try to rationalize and say, well, assign a couple people to just do a thing where they, yeah, but I feel like even though it's a kind of like a nice thing to think about, oh, I could have put this and that. You have to realize that there's all kinds of balancing issues. So with time, even if I'm a creative guy myself and I can say, oh, you should have had this and that, then you smash into a wall, which is the balancing. And so it's better to kind of maybe do less, and but doing it just right, which of course begs the question, then don't do so many catacombs, right? Which again, to me, that's a thing, right? Like, to give another example, in the same way, I didn't enjoy as much Mario Odyssey. I don't know if you ever played Mario Odyssey on the Switch.
I played a little bit. I think it had that
Yeah,
same open world collectathon vibe that's very
exactly.
overwhelming to try and get
Yes, yes,
through.
yes. But it's not only the fact that it's overwhelming; it's the simple, how do you say, like quality, quantity before quality. So I enjoy my time playing a shitty old game, not shitty, but like an old game like Mario 64, which is a masterpiece that had like probably a 40th of the stars that you can find in the game. But I enjoyed it so much more than Mario Odyssey, even though it was great, because in Mario Odyssey there's a moon everywhere. You just step on something and you get a moon, and doesn't feel like earned and doesn't feel like it has something to say. It's just like random shit that you pick up. So I love Mario Odyssey still. I really enjoyed it, but I love more Mario 64 because there were less levels and every star had the story to tell. Like, oh, you need to drain the thing that is secret at top of the mountain, and then the thing comes out, and I don't know, throw a monkey down. Like, there's so much kind of cool little adventures. There are fewer than the many moons that are in Mario Odyssey, but they feel more special. So in Elden Ring, I don't mind the fact that the open world is big, you know. But if they wanted to do that big, I don't know. I kind of wish that they would take 6 more months of development time to just I don't know, add 2 more, 3 more type of enemies of mini bosses, because I don't know, like, to me, it was so close to be. I don't know. Someone in the team should have said, "Okay, this is really fucking good, great. Let's add 3 more types of bosses or mini bosses, and it would be just perfect." And so it makes me wonder, like, oh man, they could have had just a couple more people working that, add 3 more types, and they would have been even more rich. But of course, we're dealing with stuff that I can't even comprehend when it comes to making a game, and it must be really tough. So I don't blame them, and I hope the DLC is gonna add stuff that is exciting, I suppose.
Yeah, it's like you can't really blame them, but then you can also wish for more. It's always easier to be like, hey, from the sidelines, it's
Exactly.
always easy to be like, hey, this could have been so and so, but you don't always understand what's going on. But also,
Yeah,
wanting
yeah.
different things is so valid. I am very much hoping for that kind of like expanded content in the DLC. Like in past
Mm-hmm.
games, the DLC has always been the best part of it, and they've obviously been taking a very
Mm.
long time to make sure this one is better than, like,
Yes, like
yeah.
yeah, the time they're taking is crazy. So if I can kind of not project, how do you say? Well, when I think about the stuff that I do, when I finish a cartoon and I'm embarking on the sequel or something like that, I have so much knowledge that comes from the first one that it kind of feels much easier to tackle the next thing. Especially with my first Dark Souls 3 animation, it was so daunting to make, because it was like the longest video I've ever done and stuff. But then when I did the others, ironically, the videos were longer, the true sequels that I made, but it felt less challenging, even though the animations were more complex and stuff. It was less challenging just because I had the experience. And so I hope that for them as well, making the DLC after completing this amazing game that is Elden Ring, is gonna be easier in a way, so they can make it really good. And yeah, I think maybe it works for them too. I suppose. I hope.
I would hope. And like I think like from a game design perspective, like they've already have Elden Ring built, they have the engine figured out. It's just adding on
Yes,
to what's already there, and they can even reuse some of the stuff that got cut during the main development. So I think it's like you say, it'll definitely be
exactly.
a more streamlined process available to them.
Yeah, even like graphics wise, I would say that Elden Ring looks to me. There's a lot of people that were bitching about the graphics. To me, they're absolutely amazing. Like I don't know. Yes, I tend to I in the past I was bitching about graphics, but to me, Elden Ring is just beautiful. Like the global illumination, kind of it looks really staggeringly better than DS3. They updated, the density of kind of the textures. It's immediately obvious to me. I think they took basically the engine from Sekiro. I almost said Sekiro. Oh my god, I work too much. So yeah, from Sekiro, and they, because it was already really good. The lighting was really good in Sekiro, and they used that engine to make Elden Ring. And to me, that is already amazing. Like if they make the game even more detailed, I think it would probably hurt my eyes. So when it comes to graphics, and stuff like that and aesthetics, Elden Ring is already amazing. So I think they can only put creativity and design in the pot, to make it even more amazing. So it's all about basically the great ideas for the DLC.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like Dark Souls 3 felt like it still had some of those like hints of Dark Souls 1 in it, where like some of the
Yes.
textures were a bit like grimy looking, and like the color palette was like there's a lot of memes about how it's just gray on gray on gray.
Well, Bloodborne is even more fucking like gray, not even black. It's almost like what's it called? The Bloodborne is like dark gray with some like reflections of purple. It's so weird.
Hmm.
But it's still amazing, But if you put like a chart of colors, like in Photoshop, you will have like I don't know, like some variations of black and gray. It's so weird. And also now the engine looks way better in dark areas. But I remember that like in Bloodborne and also in Dark Souls 3, which was the same engine, when you get to dark places, again, they're not really dark. They're like kind of glowy. And I don't know if you noticed that also in the dungeon in Dark Souls 3, when you go to the, what was called like below the giant worm,
The
um,
oh, not
the
Lost
labyrinth kind
Isolith,
of.
but
Yeah, the labyrinth below the giant worm
the
in.
Demon Catacombs or something, Demon
Yes.
Ruins. Uh,
Yes, they were like even the darkest part, they were glowing when you found like the basilisk, they were like kind of gray, glowy, weird. So they really corrected that in Sekiro and in Elden Ring, where stuff really looks dark. And I don't know, it was the engine that they were using that was weird, but
yeah.
it had a look to it that unfortunately they corrected in Elden Ring. But yeah.
That's
There's
another one of
certainly
those like
Elden Ring.
compromises. Like you want to have these dark places and you can't light them up fully with like a torch or anything, but you still want to like you want to be able to portray that it's dark but let people see. So you end up with like that weird glowy outline texture that they have
Yeah,
to use.
yes, but think about it. Like in Dark Souls 1, it was actually super dark. And the justification was that the character had like a light, like he was emitting like a light as an undead. Well, yeah, I think so, right? Even if you didn't have anything in the what's it called in the Tomb of the Giants, you had like some sort of light below your feet, at all times. But in Dark Souls 3 and Bloodborne, everything kind of glows, so you don't really need a torch because you can still see, you know. But in
Yeah.
Dark Souls 1, it was pitch black.
Yeah, going through
So I
like
don't
the
know.
abyss before Manus was pretty scary while when you couldn't
Yeah,
see
that's
at all.
yeah. If you put that in Dark Souls 3 or in Bloodborne, you would be able to see all the rocks around, and they would glow like a weird kind of reflection, and you would be able to make everything up.
Yeah.
But Dark Souls 1 was really, it was an older engine, but you were really lost actually because the contrast was on point.
Yeah, it's sort of interesting because it's like evidently from Dark Souls 1 and the Tomb of the Giants or the Abyss, From Software wants to play with this idea of sacrificing offense to be able to see where you are. And
Exactly.
like they already like in Demon Souls they have this thing called the Augite of Souls, which is just this little item you start with that explains why your character glows. And then in Dark Souls
Oh,
1
right.
you just glow, which is like you can see how they're already transitioning.
Yeah, kind of like, I'm not
Yeah.
gonna justify that too much. You just have to kind of like, yeah, I see what you mean.
But then it's like Dark Souls 2 is interesting because they take away the glow because they want to have the torch system. And Dark Souls
Yes, that was
2,
a lot. Yeah, was a lot
yeah.
important there.
Did you ever see like the proto trailer to Dark Souls 2 where the lighting is like a completely different system than what we got in the main game?
No, I don't remember seeing that. I remember seeing a beta of Bloodborne that it was looked so different from the final game that I don't even know how they were able to change it so much in like a couple of like 3 months. But I
Yeah.
haven't seen a Dark Souls 2 one. I don't
Um,
remember.
yeah, the Dark Souls 2 one is really interesting because it basically goes to the Fortress of the Fallen Giants, but it's almost
Hmm.
like black and white compared to the
What?
over like it's not like completely black and white, but it's like it is so faded in its color palette compared to like the anime, like really over saturated Dark Souls 2 that we
Yeah, yeah,
ended
yeah.
up with. It is a very
Yeah,
stark contrast. And it's like you can tell that they were doing it because they wanted to emphasize using the torches, and then they just had to scrap the system because of
okay.
development time.
Yeah, it could also be that they added like some kind of like a reshading thing. Like for example, when you go to, have you noticed that when you go to the bridge of Godric after you defeat Godric, there's a super weird kind of change of when you go to the bridge that goes to the tower, the Divine Tower of Godric. When you go across the archway that is in Stormvale Castle and you enter the bridge that goes to the Divine Tower with all the golems. There's like the sun basically does like a woo, it changes immediately, and it's just because they wanted to have that area to have a specific mood with the rain and also the gray sky. And so there's like it's almost like the developers are like, oh shit, let's let's change the mood, so that the sun kind of deeps, how do you say, like dunks down into the horizon, and everything changes. So it's kind of like little tricks that they use to create the exact mood. But it's a little bit noticeable there because you go through an archway and you can see the shadows moving very fast, you know. And so what you just said about DS2, maybe they had an idea to have like an atmosphere that was more like a memory kind of the past or something like that. So maybe they push down the saturation. Sometimes they do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, I think you're right on with it. And you even see the like remnants of that black white faded memory style in the memories of the
Hmm.
giants in Dark Souls 2.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah, I remember
yeah.
that.
Then there's other points in Elden Ring, like when Radahn phase changes or when Morgott dies, they have like these very
Yes.
noticeable mood shifts that do very well for like the emotional impact for this of the story, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's cool. Actually, that kind of threw me on a loop. Is that the expression? Threw me on a loop, like kind of get me confused.
I think it's threw me for a loop, but I mean,
Threw
close
me for a
enough.
loop. Thank you. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So threw me for a loop because I wanted to take screenshots for Radan for the parody, and I used like a cheat engine to kind of make him stay in place, so I could take screenshots. But in order to get to Radan, I used like a warping thing that will get me immediately to the fight, but without doing the entire kind of like side story to get to him. So there's a couple of things you need to do to make sure that the festival starts. But if you go there with the cheat engine, you can still fight him, but the weather kind of like doesn't it's not exactly the one that you see in the game, or everybody sees in the game. So when I got there, it was almost the how can I say, like the colors were not exactly the one that you see when you are playing the game normally, which is very reddish and strong. It was more like kind of foggy, and I was like, wait, something wrong here. So I already started to work on the parody. I was not in the coloring phase, fortunately. And when I got to the coloring phase, I was like, I had all these screenshots, and videos and footage that I needed to do the coloring. And so I was like, wait a minute, why this is kind of weird and washed out? And then I realized, and so I had to kind of replay the game till Radan to make sure that the weather was the one that is in the game normally. Because if you just warp there, yes, you can fight Radan, but the atmosphere of the world, how do you say it? Like the weather conditions, was not the one that happens when it's normally triggered by the game when you start the festival. And so I had all these screenshots that were kind of like washed out, and I had to redo that. My God.
That's a cool experience. That's interesting, like you might not have even
Yeah,
realized if not for
yeah,
having that.
especially. Yeah, but you know why? Because as I was working on the parody, I was watching a lot of speedruns. And in the speedrun, they go there before triggering the whole thing, because they want to do it fast. And they basically kind of leap down from the place where you talk with, what's it called? Millicent. In the speedruns, they appear at they spawn at the grace of Millicent, and then they jump with the horse, and they fall down in the arena for Rodan, and they are able to trigger the spawn point in the Wailing Dunes, and so they go straight up. They go fight Rodan. And so I thought, well, I guess, that's legit. But no, it's basically doing things before you're supposed to do them. And so I thought it was correct, but it was not. You have to do all the steps, and then you have the real fight with the nice atmosphere, that is amazing.
Yeah, it's sort of interesting to see the lengths that they'll go to achieve that ambiance. Like it's like a glimpse of the movie magic behind the scenes.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you can see a lot of stuff, the people that do behind the scenes, about how the game works. I always love that kind of stuff. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's just very interesting. Like, I think one that sticks out to me is like the Sekiro ending cutscene where Genichiro like sacrifices himself for Ishin to
Mm-hmm.
revive. It's just very
Mm-hmm.
silly to view from a free cam angle because of how their models are like smushed on top of each other.
Yes, yes. I don't know. I ask you, like, have you ever been super curious about how games work behind the scenes?
Yeah, I'm pretty bad at like development programming stuff, but I do actually
No, me
have like a
too.
lot of the
Yes.
tools downloaded for Elden Ring just because I was curious in how they worked. So it's
Yeah,
definitely like an
yeah,
interest of mine.
yeah. Me too. Like, I don't know anything about coding and stuff like that. Like, to me, it's it's alien language. But since I was a kid, when I was always on PC as a kid. I'm kind of old, by the way. I'm 35. so, so as a kid, I used to always use cheats to like no clip to just go behind. Like for example, in Half Life, there's a lot of cutscenes where like a scientist is like, oh my god, like he's screaming, and there's like a zombie dragging him near a corner that you can't access, right? Because you can't get there normally because there's a wall or there's like a window pane, right? And so I don't know if you're familiar, like in Half Life, the G-Man, the guy with the suit.
Yeah, the alien guy.
Yeah, the supposedly alien, kind of weird guy. So I would use the cheats to go through the wall to see where he was going after he closed the door and he disappears, to see where he goes, because in my mind as a little kid, I was like, as a 9-year-old, I was like, maybe he goes another dimension. So I would use the cheats to go check what was happening. And I guess, even if it was kind of disappointing to see that he would despawn, it was still cool to just see how games are made. So I always loved that. So I keep on doing that from time to time.
Yeah, I understand that completely. One of the first games I had on like my computer was Skyrim. So I would Skyrim and
Oh.
Oblivion, and I would just download like the creation engine for it and just like mess around with
Mm-hmm.
making very low effort and dumb mods or levels, and it
Oh
was just
wow,
fun
that's
to
still
have
pretty
that little
good to do
glimpse.
mods.
Yeah, I mean
It's
they were
still
it
kind
was just
of yeah. It's nice. I've never actually did mods and stuff like that. And maybe I modified. I think I modified some of the gravity in like GTA 3 by tinkering with the numbers. That's the only thing that I've did like back in the day.
yeah. It's fun to like mess with those values. I was playing Elden Ring the other
Yes.
day with like just some friends watching in a Discord call, and I made my character 10 times as tall and 10 times as wide. It
Oh
was
no.
just stupid.
Hey, at least you kept the proportions.
Yeah, they were very thin for some reason though. I couldn't figure out how
Okay.
to increase the depth, but
It like spaghettified like in a black hole.
yeah, literally.
Oh boy. Oh my god.
We'll be right back after these messages. But first, an announcement. This episode was recorded a couple months ago, but upon its long-awaited release comes an announcement of an upcoming AMA that Shezmen has so kindly agreed to put on with us. If you want to pick his brain on art or a favorite video game or anything else really, then log into r/Elden Ring discussion on October Friday the 13th to comment a question of your own. Links below. In other news, Sinclair Lore has begun to release a few Armored Core 6 lore episodes, including a hit piece discussing how badly Iguazu needs therapy, so go check out that as well. I'd also like to announce Cthulhu Seeker's new synthwave cover of the Balteus theme, Contact, which immediately topped a lot of YouTube charts after wowing players at the end of AC6 Chapter 1. At the very least, I've listened to it too much not to shout it out. And yeah, let's get back to the episode.
So, speaking of movie magic and behind the scenes, I'd be interested to hear some of like your creation process when it comes to making the parodies. I know that you already mentioned how you
Mm-hmm.
gather like screenshots and footage for
Yes.
getting like, references, I imagine. But like, is there anything
Mm-hmm.
else that goes into the process in particular that you'd like to share?
Um. Okay, I can give it like a short I hope summary. Like, I suppose the first thing is when I play the game, I write down ideas, and even like audio messages where I say something and I describe an idea or a joke or even like a line. Then I open up like a Word file and I write down these ideas kind of rough. And I also have another folder for the audio files. Another thing that I do is that if I'm playing and I'm in an area and I'm like, oh god, this area sucks, it kind of reminds me of Hollow Knight. And so I have another Word file where I write down Easter eggs. So I compile a list of Easter eggs that I'm going to put somewhere in the parody. So that's like kind of like the writing process to me is very easy because I can come up with stupid shit all the time. Like to me, writing is so easy. It's just like effortless because I just have ideas all the time. And to me, it's not even like I would say, oh, I'm so good. No, I'm not good. I can't help it. Like stupid ideas, always have them, and that is the best. How can I say? Like that's the least of the problems for me. The problem is animating because I find it really hard, and I still find it hard after many years because it just takes so much time. And I see people that are very talented. And I'm like kind of not jealous, but I think why is it for me still so hard? So the next step is to do the storyboard. The storyboard is basically like a very rough visualization. Like imagine like a standard international paper with all these squares, tiny squares. And inside of these squares, I do like a very simplified version of every scene. Okay, so in many times I don't even put the face. I just put like an X for the face. But usually I tend to put the expressions and just very very rough, you know. And so I do the whole storyboard, you know. So pages and pages of these tiny squares that have these little doodles, I guess. And after I do that, I bust out my. I usually do them on paper, but lately I've been doing that with my tiny tablet. But then I bust out my giant tablet and I start doing the sketches. So by looking at these tiny squares with the tiny doodles, I actually do a more refined version of those doodles and I animate it too. But again, this second step is still rough. It's still like a sketch. So it's very rough, you know, there's no colors. It's just like black and white, very imprecise, you know. But this sketch has the animation, right? It's almost like, imagine like the Disney, those flip books that you saw maybe in some documentary where they flip, you know, one page and the other, you can see the animation going, right? So yeah, that's the second step, the sketches, you know. And when I do the sketches, I have an idea of the animations and stuff. And then comes the third phase, which is the outlines, which some people call cleanup, where you have all the sketches in front of you, you know. You make them kind of transparent, you make them kind of, you lower the opacity basically so they're barely visible. And over these sketches, you do the final clean line, right? And then the fourth step, sorry, is the coloring. Because after you have these lines, you know, that are clean, they're kind of closed and they're not rough, they're nice, you put inside the color, you know? And the way that I do it is kind of like, you know, old school anime. You know, I do kind of the shading with a highlight, a base color, and a shadow, you know? And so I go scene by scene and I color. And then of course after that there's some additional steps to do the compositing, which, you know, adding some effects like flares, you know, and stuff like that, or titles. And yeah, and then after I there's some kind of little things that I do that make it more feel more legit, like it's made. I try to make the cartoons look as if they're not like a Flash cartoon, even though I use Flash, but I try to make them look more legitimate, as if they were kind of like a 90s anime, you know. And I add some grain, you know, some imperfections, you know, they make it less computer generated. And then I do the final editing by adding a lot of sounds. And the editing, you know, is always kind of crazy because I have so many, like it's a jungle of tiny sound effects, you know, kind of layered one after the other. And the final the final timeline is it's absolutely like it's a nightmare. It's just like insane, full of sound effects. And then I export it, you know, and I put it on YouTube basically. So yeah, to summarize again, you know, you do the storyboard, then you do the sketches that are also animated. You do the outlines, which is the cleanup of the sketches to make them look precise, you know, and clean. Then I color it, and then I export it, and I do the final editing.
Okay, that was an interesting deep dive into it. I've actually like
What
I
was
don't know that
that?
much.
Was that to the? I don't know if it's too nerdy. I have no idea if it was understandable.
No, I mean, I don't know that much about animating. Like, I just knew like the storyboard and then like how that
Oh well,
evolved in the
that's pretty good.
sketches. But like, I mean, like it's
Hmm.
cool to hear about the process from someone that like does it all themselves and then like has their own sort of like nuanced take and just you know like it's a
Yeah,
personal
I gotta make
experience.
my life easier, you know, because being alone is kind of difficult to manage. Like I have my method, you know, and I would say also that I'm a little bit of a guy that doesn't want to update the latest softwares because I'm just, even though they crash more, I'm just happy with this old stuff because I know how to handle my old programs, you know. So I always tend to resist getting new programs, but I just find it kind of comfortable to use old programs that I'm used to, you know, because I want to, like, if I jump to new software, I have to adapt, I have to change some things that to me are kind of second nature. You know, imagine when you're drawing that you know where to put your fingers to the shortcut. You know, you instinctively know where to go with your cursor without even looking. You know, so if I change software, I'm going to have to retrain myself, and I don't have the time to do that. So
Yeah.
I keep using the old programs, and yeah, that's honestly there's other steps that I also do, which is the voice acting, obviously. for my character, which is, I think this time was like 25 pages, some ridiculous like that. And I also do the voice directing for all the voice actors. So on my hard drive, there's an audio of each one of the characters that I send to the voice actors, where I talk like Melina or stuff like that, because I love doing voice directing because I like to give directions like, okay, please make this voice a little bit more kind of like I don't know, dreamy, like as if she's asking a question more than a statement. So I give all these directions, and it's always a lot of fun, And then I do sometimes the music. So other than the music from the games, I tend to do some covers or silly songs that I put there that I also do myself. And to me, those parts are the most fun. I can't wait to do the music because I'm like, oh, I'm so tired of animating. Just give me something fun to do.
Yeah, you want to switch it up after so long in front of the tablet.
Yeah, it's the best moments because I love to play the guitar. So to me, that's like taking a break.
Yeah. I mean, that's a cool process, and it's very impressive that, creating music is your form of taking a break, rather than like playing video
Yeah.
games or something.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Some people will hate me probably. They will think, oh, but that's my job. But yeah, okay. The thing is that the music that I make for my parodies, they're silly. But people that do music for real, they put their heart and soul. Not that I don't do it, badly or on purpose or that I take it, not as seriously. I take it very seriously. But I'm just saying that people that actually produce music professionally, they are really good, and they take it very, very seriously and they do amazing stuff. I try what I can. I learn how to use audio production and do stuff like that. So I just I don't know. I find it fun to do, compared to animation because animation is very creative and cool. But when it comes to being just a repetitive, tedious process of just cleaning up and doing the same thing every day, it's yeah, it can be very. It's difficult to find motivation, but yeah, it's just repetitive and that never ends. So
Yeah.
I try to listen to podcasts to be busy, listening to YouTube videos and podcasts, because otherwise I will lose my mind.
I 100% understand that. I used to do a lot of homework in college as, with podcasts and whatnot in the background just because of the
That's
tedium.
so cool though. Like, how do you manage to do stuff? Because animating, I don't have to think too much. I guess yeah, I have to think, but I don't have to learn other stuff. You know what I mean?
That's true. I wouldn't do it while I was like studying a book, but like, filling out problems, trying to I was like in an astronomy class one time, and it was like there's a lot of
Ooh.
tedious like going over like reference sheets for like where the positions of celestial bodies were, and I would just put on a
Ah.
podcast in the background while I hunted for the moon and like tried to like determine where the stars were in relation to it, or
Ah.
some stuff
It
like
makes
that.
sense then. So the
Hmm.
more kind of like mechanical kind of aspect of learning, I guess, because I can even imagine because when I was like in high school, I think I had like still like a Nokia phone. So even if I wanted, I guess I would distract myself with video games. But how can you study and also play video games, right? So,
Yeah.
but now, and I know I sound like a boomer, but it's true. Like when I was like in high school, I think I got the first kind of smartphone kind of thing probably when I was in the first year university. So I can even imagine how it would be to learn stuff but also have like podcasts. um, it must be. I think I don't know. People nowadays are probably more intelligent because they develop two brains to be able to do more stuff. I kind of envy that.
Well, thank you. At the very least, we are more ADHD. I have like a very bad attention span.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah. It could be. I don't know. I'm also ADHD. I have to say. So I don't know.
Um, yeah. That's interesting though. Like seriously, it really is cool to like meet someone who's so deep into that animating process. And like I can sort of see how
Mhm.
that differentiates from music. Not to drop on that for too long, but it's like with music there's like a very immediate process to just like strumming at a guitar or humming or playing at the piano or
Hmm.
something. But then like that repetition
Mm.
can still occur if you get really deep into editing it, I feel like. But then at the same time, like for
Yeah,
someone who
especially in
just
music production. Yeah, music production where
yeah,
you're trying to get the snare to sound more crunchy and stuff like that. I've been through that too, but yeah, I know what you mean.
yeah. Yeah, it's just interesting because it's like both of those refining processes for like music editing or I guess like, editing artistic works, like sort of similarly
Mm.
tedious in some ways, but then just different
Yes,
mediums. Yeah.
I think what matters is that if you are super passionate, like there has to be like a spark that is in you. So for me, for example, when it comes to the whole process, yes, there are parts that are very tedious, but the moment that that is kind of shaping up the idea that I have in my mind, there's like this spark of happiness and passion that kind of like a fire inside of you, where even if you're so tired, like, oh God, I've been doing this for like, I don't know, 11 hours, but there's something that makes you go over the hurdles because you're seeing the thing that your baby kind of like taking shape, and it's so satisfying. So basically what I'm saying is that when whatever you do, whatever you do in your life, that you're good at or that you're passionate for, there's almost like a part of it that luckily it feels not as work in a way, you know and so that part is so exciting to do, even if you do music, where you don't really feel like it's heavy. Yes, there are parts of the process. There will always be parts that are heavy, because if you want to achieve something that is good, you have to put sweat and tears, in it at some degree. But if you're very passionate about, if you're not passionate about it, it will always be work and will always be super boring. But luckily, there's this kind of bonus card, or this, how can I call it, like a cheat. I don't know, like what would be the word, like card that you have that you can use as a um I don't know how to call it, like I think we use the word jolly in Italian, like a trump card, maybe is the word.
Yeah, like your secret power,
Yeah,
whatever,
secret,
your trump
exactly,
card.
exactly, like a secret ingredient that makes you kind of go through the difficulties, because the passion that you have makes you motivated to finally produce the song, finishing it and have it done. And that's the only thing that enables you to complete that work. If you don't have that passion, you're gonna probably give up earlier.
Yeah, you'll burn out easier if you don't keep the passion
Hmm.
going. It's
Exactly. Yes.
interesting because like that sort of like expands into all layers of life, like having the passion to
Yes.
just like apply yourself to anything. Like my dad, he's a
Hmm.
carpenter, and one of
Oh.
the things that he's always preferred with carpentry to like just general dumb labor or even just making something along someone else's guidelines is that when you build something, especially something as like complex as a house or like, even just
Oh my
remodeling parts of
God.
a house, like
Yeah.
you are
Yeah.
constantly thinking of the next step because you're building into the next part of it. Everything is part of a larger process. So it's like he just talks about how
Yes.
he enjoys the labor from the standpoint of even while he's like, tired as shit after working all
Yeah.
day,
Yeah.
his mind is still active thinking about that, what to
Yes.
do next. So,
Yes, like I think that you hit the nail on the head, because no pun intended, because honestly, like when you think about the next step, that is like the locomotion that makes you, like the fuel that makes you kind of envision what you're doing and makes you excited to finish this task that you're doing now. So even for me, when I'm doing like a very boring as shit outline, of brick walls, I'm like, oh my God, but I can't wait to color this, and see how the atmosphere looks like of the scene, from the game. And especially for me, because I'm kind of mimicking what is already in the game, it's kind of like I'm waiting to make it come to life, and trying to recreate the same atmosphere of the game. So in the case of carpentry, and stuff like that, it must be amazing, because you're also making something physical. So, and you are gonna use it like in the physical world. So I can even imagine how satisfying it must feel.
yeah, no, 100%. Like that tangible reality is very,
Yeah, I think I kind of train my brain into thinking that what I do is also tangible. because I suppose I kind of think about people that watch it, and it leaves some sort of like I don't know, entertainment or thing that they can go back to. And I like to kind of think of it as something that goes beyond just a video, you know. I think that also motivates me to make it happen, you know. Even though it's just a video, I like to kind of make it more detailed, you know, I guess, with also the references. And because all the references that I put, they're not just thrown there random. They're just like, to me, things like when I was playing that part of the game, I felt like, oh, look, this looks like, I don't know, like this to me looks like Final Fantasy VII, you know, like this weapon looks kind of just like the one that I saw in another game. So all those references, they're very honest, you know, because it was my actual thought in that moment. Or I see an enemy that looks like another one from another game. And I like to do these connections, you know, between things. And that's why I put so many references, not because I wanted to just dump random stuff there, you know. And
Yeah.
that's a thing that I love a lot to do with the references and the Easter eggs, you know.
I think like that desire to make what you create tangible. So that goes back to like I made a joke, art elevates life, and
Mm.
it wasn't a joke. It was very like a true statement in some
Mm-hmm.
ways. But like in creating something that's so based around your own experiences and sharing it, you create an impact that is tangible and how people receive it and interpret it. So like I feel like that's
Mm-hmm.
like you do achieve that in some ways, even if you're not building like a physical house, but like
Thank you.
everything's different. And it's nice.
Thank you, thank you. I like to. I honestly, I like to think that just because it gives me motivation to not discourage myself when I'm working on these. So I kind of like try to. I'm a good motivator for myself, like the coach. You know, it's like myself. I coach myself to like, come on, you know, like I talk to myself, quote unquote. But I have to do it. You know, everybody that does something that they want to, like a project, I think they have to be. Um, I don't know, they have to kind of have, I suppose, a little bit of that, not arrogance. What would be the word? They have to believe in the fact that they are going to do something nice, you know? And
Yeah.
that's why I kind of feel for people that don't have motivation because they have maybe insecurity. You know, I do have some insecurities certainly, but when it comes to what I do, um, I tend to really not to kind of not think about the insecurities because I need the energy to make it happen. And I feel for people that even in my life, I know some people that have insecurities and they struggle to even like start a project, you know. And I feel very fortunate because for me, starting a project, I feel like I have almost like a again, I don't know what would be the word, but I'm kind of like I don't know, my motivation is like, yeah, you can do it, you know, like of course you can do it, you know, which is a little bit naive maybe, but you need some naivety to being able to kind of be decisive in starting a big project. You know, you need to believe in it.
Yeah, because like you need that confidence in yourself and the ability to finish and make something that's worthwhile. Otherwise, when you have those like moments of doubt, the pessimism will creep in, and you'll abandon the
Yes.
project, or you'll get burnt out, or you'll just give up, and
Yeah,
that's
exactly. It could spiral out of control. And I would say that some very rarely it happens that I'm like, no, this joke doesn't really work. You know, maybe I should change it. But it very rarely happens. It's always that just small adjustments. Like, for example, oh wait, this line here maybe it doesn't work exactly how it has to be more direct. So I would rewrite a line for the character, you know, but I wouldn't change the scene completely because also think about it, you know, if you're doing an animation and you committed to something that you animated, like a whole scene, how the fuck can you be like, wait, no, I don't need it anymore, and you wasted like boom 30 hours? So it's like, nope. Like you really have to move carefully because if you fuck up and you have to throw a scene, which almost never happened to me, it's like so many hours of your life wasted and it's heartbreaking. So I try to avoid it, you know. I try to not do the mistake, but yeah, it can
yeah.
happen, you know.
I've always had like a very strong admiration for like that kind of confidence. I hate to say it, but I do fall into that sort of pessimistic, insecure vibe a little bit, just in the sense that like I was never
I
much of an
see.
artist, just because I'd get discouraged while drawing something and be like, this is terrible. I'm
Hmm.
not gonna even put effort into this, and it's like.
Hmm.
I've found other things, obviously, that I put my work into and I find that drive in. But like, with art and like those creative spheres, I just have so much respect for the people that can really like get down into it, especially when like sometimes with art, you don't always have like a guaranteed roof over your head from it. I went to
Yeah,
college to
yeah,
try and get like a career that felt stable, and I knew a lot of artists that were like, like the starving artist trope, and I'm like, I have so much
yeah, yeah.
respect for that.
Yeah, dude. If I'm gonna be honest, like I also have respect for people because look, I look at some people that are younger than me and they do amazing stuff, and I'm like, fuck, like how they are so it's so effortless that they draw a hand so beautifully, and I'm like, fuck, like to me it takes a lot of it takes more time for me to do something. And yes, you could say that it kind of offset, like the fact that I do long animations, it kind of, you could say that maybe, well, you do long stuff, you do detailed things, and maybe the animation is not that great, but honestly, if I was one of those people that I see sometimes that they animate so well, I want to just go to them and go like, and shake them and go like, please do more, because you're so good, I sucked when I was your age. I sucked, and I still suck in many ways because I could do so much better, and but it takes it's just very difficult to animate, so there's so many people that are way better than me, but I kind of want to find them and shake them and be like, please just do, maybe go to sleep later, but I trust me, if you continue to do this well, you're gonna do amazing things, and I don't know, I think it's a different kind of mentality, I suppose, where there's some people that maybe work really well but in short bursts. To me, I work my way, I suppose, but I have a lot of stamina to do a long video, I suppose, right? But there's some people that I just look at them, I'm like, oh my god, you're so amazing, and I kind of envy them because it looks so clean and so confident too, right? And yeah, so I look at them with admiration, and I wish that I had the same, especially for their age, that at the time I was that good. But instead, for me, my life has been always about kind of bashing my head against the wall until I get the thing that I like, that I'm satisfied with. But it gets easier with time, with experience. But man, there's some people that are just insane. They're just so talented, and I see them with the same admiration that you see people that do art, I suppose. I feel like I'm not like them. They're aliens, and I'm mimicking, trying to be like them, you know?
Yeah, you see someone and they do something that's so like it feels so out of your league. You just are left with nothing but admiration, and you're like, you have to like tell yourself
Yeah,
that you are that good. You just go into different spheres, and that not everything's a
exactly.
competition, and like all of those are important.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have to kind of like focus on your strengths, because at the end of the day, if what you do has something that it can offer that is different, like if I was fighting with the same on the same aspect of someone else, let's say that someone is amazing at doing animated like he does like amazing animations that are super action based, so the fights are so spectacular and always moving, the dialogues are so well animated. I look at that and I'm like, they're amazing what they do, and oh man, I wish I was that talented. But then my the way that I deal with it is thinking, yes, they are very good, but what I do is parodies, right? So I like to kind of flex a little bit with the animations from time to time, but what I think is my more strong, how do you say, my strong uh, help me out, what is my kind of like
Uh,
strong feature, I guess.
Character trait maybe.
One of in my tool set, thing that makes me different is the fact that I make long animations, and I put a lot of references, and I try to put a lot of details. That's what I try to do. So if you compare this format that I do with what they do, it's very different, right? It's still animation, but I can't make it like a 30-minute animation that is amazingly animated, because it will be also very tiring to watch, because everything is so animated, like everything changes. You can't keep up with it, right? So how I rationalize it is that what I offer is one thing, it's a long animation that is centered around jokes, and the atmosphere of the game and how you experience the game. These other people, that are super talented, their strong aspect is the fluidity of the animation, and it's a different stuff. It's a different thing that they offer, and the two things can live together. You know what I mean? And so I don't feel like, oh, I want to, I am jealous. I just look at them. I'm like, oh man, you're amazing. And I can learn something from you. It's almost like they give me some spark. They give me some inspiration to improve my animations. But at the same time, I don't want to. I'm not like jealous about them. I'm like, you're amazing. I want to learn just a little bit from you. Because you inspire me. But I don't want to take your place. I want to do the stuff that I like to do, that makes me happy, and you do what you're doing, and we can live together in harmony, you know?
Yeah, that's sort of like the beauty of the human experience. Everyone's able to carve out their
Mm-hmm.
own niche to live with, and you see that in
Yes.
microcosm and across many fields of like, like even in the Soulsborne sphere. I've had a lot of people on this podcast that talked about like how they got into some of the Soulsborne stuff because of Elden Ring, or just like because they got started
Hmm.
from a newer light. And it's like getting started, like Soulsborne, it's a very saturated content market in some ways. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people that are trying to make it, and they're all like hustling very hard. I respect all of them. And it's like it's interesting to hear people's experiences where they're like, well, I was trying to think of, I like this game so much, and I was trying to think of some way I could add to the online content sphere, and they'd look at what
Mm-hmm.
already existed and they'd make their own sort of, niche, their own sort of thing that they can make their own, which is just, I think that's
Yeah.
a nice thing to see.
It's interesting because when it comes to making something and you use something else as a reference, it's interesting the kind of inception process, right? Because there's someone that is super excited about a series of games and is like, I wanted to do something similar, So it's that process. Who knows, what is better in terms of, because so many things in media are, or movies and stuff, they're all kind of derivative. But the one, the ones that actually become brilliant are the one that can disguise the new thing that they're creating from the inspiration that they take from. So, for example, Kojima, the games are so amazing because he took from movies. He took from movies like what's it called, Escape from New York, and fucking, I don't know, like he probably took from Rambo and all those movies, the American Western media, and or Die Hard, mission, where there's a mission going on, Mission Impossible, and he made it into, and he gave it his own kind of style. But it's so transformative that it feels cool, it feels new, it feels amazing, but it doesn't feel like someone that is trying to make another Souls game. It feels like someone that took the ingredients that he loves so much and he created this pie that has an amazing taste, but it feels new, right? So the people that are, I suppose, really kind of trying to, they're too fanboy towards Dark Souls, they can risk, of being kind of obviously taking reference, and so yeah, it can be tricky, but some people really, even if they take some references, they're able to kind of hide the references and elevate them, right?
Yeah, like there's this really interesting thing where like everything, no thought is original at this point. Humans have existed for so
Nope. Yeah,
long. Like,
exactly.
yeah, everything is derivative, but in being a derivation, you can draw inspiration from many sources and you can evolve the concept with your own ideas of it. And it's just Like even
Yes.
you at the beginning of the podcast episode, you talked about how you were sort of bored of the typical fantasy tropes, like the Dungeons
Mm-hmm.
and Dragons, the Neverwinter
Mm-hmm.
Nights, the stuff like that. And it's like Dark Souls at its like surface layer is a derivative of Dungeons and Dragons, of Lord of the Rings, of all of that stuff. Like Demon Souls
Yep.
literally has mind flayers in it.
Yes. Yes.
But
Yes.
like
And
it
yet, and
evolves.
yet, and yet, it is able to just be so fascinatingly different because the aspect that is in it that makes it unique has is so shines so bright that is able to kind of like hide the references in a way, it elevates it more, like because the idea that Miyazaki had was more powerful than all the parts that are put together. There's something about it that just kind of it's like a layer of uh, a fascinating kind of power that is in it, or from his idea, that makes it into something kind of like a transformative effect. And again, it's very important to have that, to have some ideas that you want to express, because think about it, if Kojima wanted to do just like another open world game, and he's a fan of open world games, he would have done another fucking open world game that nobody gives a shit. But because he had an amazing idea for Death Stranding, he made Death Stranding. And Death Stranding is so weird and personal of his experience that is the main ingredient that makes it into something new and different. And so it's not just another open world game. You can like it or not, that's trending, but it's very personal. It's the ingredients can be taken from stuff that we have already seen, open world stuff, walking simulators, but it's just so different, like the taste of the final product, it's nothing that was seen before, so you come out of the game with an experience that is so new, and so was with Dark Souls. It's not another RPG game. It's something different. It leaves you like a some sort of magic in you, some sort of makes you think a lot, because if it was just another random RPG, it would be kind of forgettable. And even Zelda does the same. Zelda is also very tropey, but everything about Zelda, you want to come back to the game because there's that sound effect. There's so many things that makes it amazing, and it's not just like any other RPG, Japanese RPG,
Yeah, absolutely. It's just like not to be one of those like sound like one of those fanboys, but I really do think that there's a strong argument for calling some of these games art, just for how they are able to layer human emotion and
Oh
experience
my
through the
god,
medium to create such a unique
man! When I
experience with
see,
it.
yeah, when I see people say that they're not art, like I think even George R. R. Martin said that. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, are you out of your fucking mind? Like, to me, it's almost like saying that the water is not wet. Like, what are we talking about? This is, of course, this is like it's such an old stigma towards video games that it's really stupid. I don't get it. It is
Yeah.
art.
Like
It's
yeah.
insulting almost to say that it's not, because think about all the sweat and tears and work that people put in these. There's nothing that is like I can even this, like, if I had to defend by saying I would be the other part of the argument and try to defend that is no, it is not art. I wouldn't even know what to say, because I don't know. Like, yes, if you use like reused assets from Unreal Engine and you do like a patchwork of random shit, maybe I would say that is not art because it's just stealing and stuff. But other than that, even like a 3D game where you're like a piece of shit, it's art. You think about it, because there's effort, there's an idea behind it, so hard to defend someone saying, oh, it's not art.
Yeah. No, I'm totally with you.
Mhm.
Like I feel like if it really became a conversation, there is some nuance in like this line that has to be crossed between a commercial project of people that are hired by an entity to produce something to make money,
Hmm.
and they do it along guidelines to make money. But then like all of those people are still introducing themselves to this setting with their own emotional dispositions, their own desire to create, and their own desire to like showcase something that you end up with
Yes.
something that's very emotional and very artistic at the end, no matter what, in a way.
Yes, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Like the more kind of it's like corporate, the more is kind of like mechanical the process where people are just there to kind of like fill up gaps, by putting the thing in the thing to create the assets, and they don't believe in it. It's just like a mechanical thing. The more, yeah, I would say that like when I say it, like the higher the games like Ubisoft. I'm not talking about all their games because there's a lot of really well done stuff and people that are very talented, but the more kind of obvious, examples of games that are made just to kind of like meet like a deadline, like even there was like a looter shooter shitty game that came out recently from that was ridiculous. This was from Arcane, who made Dishonored. They make like a Red something. There was like a game that came out. There was a disaster. It's almost like they phoned it in, you know.
Yeah.
And so Redfall, I think it was called. I haven't played it, but I've seen some reviews and it was like, oh my god, it's so embarrassing. So a game like that, or even any FIFA that comes out, they are just I don't know. There's art in how they produce the assets, because you have to be really talented to do stuff like that. But the more it gets into the territory, the more even if is an artistic aspect, it gets eroded by the mechanical creating just to make money. But I think there's still art in it. It's just buried over an avalanche of shit.
Yes. I mean, I sort of love that. Like I don't know if you've seen it, but there's this meme that's like, I want shorter video games with worse graphics made by people that are paid more money. Like
Oh my god.
like the sentiment is that they're very against like content bloat. Assassin's Creed,
Mm.
Odyssey or Valhalla, they're such huge games. I cannot functionally imagine beating half of it. There's so much that's
Nope.
going on. And it's like you say, even with Elden Ring, which goes into that open world with the catacombs, there's so much to the point where the best type of experience is one where you don't try to do it all, because doing it all will kill you.
Yes.
Like it's just too much. And
Yes.
in that
Yes. And
sense, like just like in that sense, like you say, you have this avalanche of shit, all of this pushed
mhm.
overproduction of content bloat to make a longer game so that people will play it more and will like it'll meet a
Mhm.
quota or a deadline and it'll be released to make money. And it's like there is art encapsulated in it. It's obfuscated by everything else, Like even the earlier
Yes.
Assassin's Creed games, they have some of like
Yes.
they're very like tropey. It's like it's like an action movie that's like a bit,
Yes.
but it's
That's
fun.
what I
It's
was what I was about to say. I was about to say to quote my last animation. Like when I say go back when Ratatosker. You know if you know Ratatosker, the content creator. He was like in my new parody. At the end of the part with the skit with him, I'm like I don't know where to go. And he's like looks at me like, are you kidding me? And then he goes away. I'm like, wait, where are you going? And he's like, bitch, go back play Assassin's Creed. That joke actually had an extra line that was like me right after the joke, the punchline. There was like the screen would fade to like a text that says, okay, moving on. And in the background, I wanted to add a line that says, I haven't been playing Assassin's Creed since 2007 because it's true. I played the first one, I played the second one. I think I played Brotherhood just a little bit, and then I stopped because I was like, okay, this is just like being created, just like shitting out games. And I saw there was starting to be like that. And then I stopped playing because, yes, the first Assassin's Creeds, they were amazing. Like even the second one that was like in Italy, which is my country, it was mind blowing. Like it was just so good. But then when I saw the just like copy and paste and the shitting out the game every year, without too much thought, there were some good attempts, like for example Black Flag. I played just a little bit of it, and also certainly Origins. I heard good things about it, even Odyssey. If I was like had some free time, extra free time, I would probably play Origins. Actually, I thought about it, but yeah, after those first two games, I just don't understand why people continue to play it so much, because I don't get it. Maybe I get tired more fast than other people, faster. But the first two games to me, they were amazing. It was something new, right? That's the thing that works for me. If something is new and fresh, I like it. If it gets stale and repetitive, no thanks. I'll stop buying it.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think like if you look at games as the medium is the interaction, the gameplay that you produce, then having the same gameplay over and over, even if it's a new story, it's just the same game in that regard, which I think is
Mm.
partially why it's so important to try and like implement new ideas of how the gameplay will function with a lot of your different like iterations. Like if you're making a series, it's
Yeah.
always better to like try and change it up, even if the change is for the worse. Like Dark Souls 1 to Dark Souls 2, they're very different games, but Dark Souls 2 finds an identity in the fact that it's not Dark Souls 1. And I think
Yeah,
that's
that's
why
kind of true. Yeah.
yeah.
And I think that Dark Souls 3, it's you might say, well, then Dark Souls 3 is less interesting because it's kind of like one. But right there, I think the thing that makes it better, or sorry, the thing that makes it stand on its own, is the fact there was enough of a leap in technology to make it its own thing. So 1 and 3, even though it's almost like the idea that it builds upon what it was already good, to kind of like make it even more polished. And it's the same between Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. You know, like it took something that was already pretty good, and they built upon it to make it even more rich. And to me, Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 3, they can coexist, and they're not just kind of like, oh, the first one you just throw it away. No, no, no. Dark Souls 1, yes, it was more old, in terms of gameplay, more clunky, but the lore was amazing. The third one, maybe in the lore aspect, is not as revolutionary, but the gameplay is more modern. So they live together perfectly in a way, right?
Yeah, it's like it's very much that Dark Souls 3 is like this capstone to the series. It's a send off after 2 left a
Yes.
bitter taste in people's mouths, and it very much wants to present itself as an appealing game to play. And I respect that
Mm.
decision. And it's very cool to see how like they always wanted that Bloodborne style action
Mm-hmm.
combat, but they couldn't get it until after, Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3. And they didn't
Exactly.
really perfect it until Sekiro and Elden Ring, in my opinion. But like
Exactly. Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Yes. They. I don't know. Like to me, the most insane leap was Bloodborne. I played it a little bit after it came out, but to me, it's just like, wow. Like even now, look, it feels very modern. So when I saw Dark Souls 1 for the first time, which was the first one that I tried, I suppose, to later play it, but immediately it felt very very clunky and antique. How do you say, like very very old?
Yeah.
Um, but seeing Bloodborne coming out, because even Dark Souls 2, many of the animation were kind of like, they were kind of weirdly, they're like Dark Souls 2 animations. They have their own, they're kind of stilted and weird, and some people like it, they like the style. But to see what they did in Bloodborne is like, what the like who they hired that changes so much. Like it looks modern, it looks uh, very natural and cool at the same time, very anime. So it's another game. It's just kind of like a leap forward compared to Dark Souls 1 and 2, that it's insane. I was kind of like, what? This is doesn't even seem like a game done by the same people, but they did it.
It's the first step in that evolution from just being a dungeon crawler where a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
difficulty is in like the enemy composition and the level design to the difficulty is in the gameplay. It's like a fighting game almost, just in how intense
Yes,
it can
yes.
get.
Oh God, I still, if I think about it, I get anxiety. Honestly, when I hear of people that are like, yeah, yeah, I played Bloodborne, and maybe there are people that haven't played Dark Souls first. I'm like, are you insane? I'm like, oh my God, you're amazing. How did you manage to finish the game? It's really hard. To me, it's the
Yeah.
one that gives me more agitation. Not only for the atmosphere. They can be kind of, a little bit of a downer, but in a very fascinating way, but just like it's relentless, you know?
Yeah, it's very intense. And the blood vial system doesn't really let you make a lot of
Nope.
mistakes without burning yourself out in
Oh
farming.
my god. Oh god. Oh no.
It's funny,
PTSD.
my first experience with Bloodborne was going to a friend's house for like a party and spending the entire night there playing Bloodborne over like 8 or 9 hours, and we got to
Oh
Gearman
god.
and ran out of blood
To
vials.
Germa. To Germa. Oh god. So that was one of your first Souls games, maybe, or not?
Yeah, I started with Dark Souls 2, then
Ah,
went
okay,
back
okay.
and did Dark Souls 1, and that was around the time I did Bloodborne. I also like played
Okay,
Demon
okay.
Souls around that time as well.
Okay, okay. So yeah, I guess even if you had the experience, Bloodborne. Okay. I would argue that maybe if someone played the other games first, playing Bloodborne, like so if you're fresh into the Souls games, perhaps the frantic combat of Bloodborne is going to be less problematic compared to someone that comes from other Souls games because you're tricked into thinking in a different way, right? Who knows? Maybe that's true.
Yeah, you play way more passively if you have that knowledge from the previous games, and if you try that with
Yes.
Bloodborne and you don't expect the aggression, you'll just
Mm-hmm.
get whacked. Like even there's this really interesting shift. Gosh, okay, I could
Yeah.
go on for hours about the evolution
It's
of
okay. It's
gameplay in these
okay.
games, but like,
I love it.
it's like dodging backwards in Bloodborne will get you killed like 90% of the time because all of the
Dodging
enemies jump
backwards.
past you. Yeah, like they attack
Ah,
at the spot behind you because it wants to train you to dodge to the side and around the enemies so
it's
that you can
true.
flank
Yeah,
them, you know? And it's like not a lot of people
you're
get
right.
that like consciously, but subconsciously they usually pick it up after playing for a while. It's really cool how it trains
That's
you to
true.
do
Yeah.
that to me.
Yeah, like I just imagine myself like doing that now and horribly dying. So you're so right. Like the side dodge is so much more efficient. But yeah, honestly, I didn't have too much like an enormous amount of trouble with Bloodborne because I even before when I talked about Dark Souls 1, my first experience with the gargoyles, the first thing that I did because I thought it was very slow is removing all my armor. So I am a type of guy that likes kind of like more fast-paced games. So to me, Dark Souls 1 felt slow also because of the fact that when you have the armor, you're very slow, right? So when I got to play Bloodborne, it was more up my alley, you know? So I don't know, it's a weird balance of expectations that you have, you know? It was still pretty difficult, Bloodborne, but it was still more my style, you know? But it's just funny to me because, again, when I played Dark Souls 1 the first time, I actually realized that it was I just remembered right now, yes, that I removed most of the armor because it started to feel more like a game that it was up my alley, you know, because especially in Dark Souls 1, the more armor you have, the you become super slow, right? But it doesn't
Yeah.
happen in Dark Souls 3 because in Dark Souls 3 you have like a pretty fast roll even in full armor, which is ridiculous. But you know, sometimes you have to kind of change things to make it more pleasant to play, you know, even if it's not realistic. And I can give them the concession, you know, because Dark Souls 3 felt better, you know, in many ways. Hmm.
No, I mean, I get where you're coming from. Like, in some ways, I would love to see a Dark Souls 1 styled game where they tried to nail the clunkiness of fighting in heavy armor. But, like, I'm
Yeah,
totally
yeah.
with you in loving those fast-paced games. Like, I do the same thing. I don't go over 25% equip load in Dark Souls 1 just because
Mm-hmm.
you run
Yeah.
slower. Like, the game
Yep.
takes longer to move through.
Yeah,
And, like, yeah.
No, I was just thinking that if they do like a Dark Souls 1 type of game, I think if they refine some of the other aspects, like even the omnidirectional rolling, that would make it way more justified to be slow, you know, because at least you have more options. But in many cases, Dark Souls 1 would kind of like make you like your options are more narrow because of the fact that the controls were more antique, you know, more, what's the word when some obsolete, I suppose, you know. And so if they do like a Dark Souls 1 more methodical kind of game, I would fine with it, even if it's slower. It's just that you need to have more how do you say game feel to it, you know, like the way that you kind of like give instructions doesn't have to be faster, you know, necessarily, but it has to give you more options. Something about, you know, how do you attack with your hand, you know, maybe a way that you can kind of deflect sometimes, some kind of the compenetration of I think if they do a new game that is more medieval, they should add more kind of gameplay mechanics about the sword actually being very precisely the hitboxes have to be very precise, you know. They have to make something so that you can kind of like clash swords more. It's not about, you know, just a stock animation where you do like a slash, you know. They have to give more nuance to the gesture, you know. That could be like the next level, you know, where they kind of make the combat more methodical and more precise. And I believe there's already some games that did that. Maybe what was that called? Could it
For
be that you?
Honor was one.
For on, yeah. Well, I wanted to mention that I haven't played it, but I heard that the combat is more methodical and more realistic. So imagine that into like a Dark Souls game. Maybe it could work. I don't know.
Yeah, like I think that under what you're talking about and what I mentioned, like with the heavier armor, slower pacing, I think like the best angle to take it with would be to remove the dodge as the be all end all of like the way your
Yeah.
defensive options, and then evolve it with like something akin to the parry system from Sekiro, but then also
Yes. Yes.
like you
Exactly.
say with like For Honor, or even I don't have you heard of the game series Chivalry? It's like a multiplayer
Yes,
game.
yes. I played it one time in a LAN party, and then I don't even remember how. I don't remember like the gameplay too much because it was like 6 years ago. But it was
Yeah.
it's pretty well received by people. They like it a lot.
Yeah, I'm one of those people that likes it a lot. I just love how you can see like actual sort of like battle formations appear just from people spawning in, and like all of the strengths of different weapons are in like the reach they have, or if they're effective against armor, and like the damage values compared to the reach. So it's
Yeah,
much less like
right.
high fantasy RPG feeling, and it's more I'm hitting you with an axe, and I appreciate
Yes,
that.
yes. I think the granularity, I suppose, that those games have. I think with the reiterations of, you know, more and more Souls game that they made, if they do like a game that incorporates these kind of more realistic animations, and they kind of polish them to the point that you can actually have, let's say, you know, like a new Dark Souls 4 reboot or whatever it could be. Imagine that you can kind of like use a like a pole, and it's not just like a random animation of just compenetrating the pole that goes through the body. Maybe like you deform the armor and the thing goes inside and they start to bleed, you know. And maybe you continue to poke them, let's say with something that is even stronger, and they get cut in half, you know, or you completely disable their arm. So stuff like that is not being done now, because usually when games have those granular details, the whole game is based on that aspect, and so the story goes to shit because the people that worked on it, they had to work so hard on that gameplay mechanic, you know. So now that they know how to create a game so well, maybe they can start adding layers of precision and granularity, so that in the next Souls game, maybe you will be able to poke someone or cut them with like a sword until the arm comes off. And that would be amazing. That would be next level, literally next level.
Yeah, it'd be very cool. It's like it's such a fine balance to make because it's similar to like what the creation process you were talking about earlier was like, where you
Hmm.
have like, even from the point of storyboarding and trying to implement those storyboards, you're
Hmm.
like dedicating huge amounts of time to the process. And even just like one misjudgment in how you allocate that could mean that you waste 10, 20, 30 hours of work. So like like you say
Hmm.
with like these big games, I think like it's funny you brought up like the limb cut off thing, and that's a big thing in the
Hmm.
Surge 2. I haven't beaten it because I didn't like it much, but like that was like a
Wait,
big
which
thing.
game? Which
Uh,
game?
the Surge 2.
Oh, the Surge. Okay, yeah, yes, yeah. I heard of. I've seen gameplay. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like you can target limbs, and it's like the idea is that you get the limbs for crafting, and that maybe you can disable people, and different enemies have different armors, but it's a very boring system because it doesn't have the nuance that it needs to really be good. And it's like, but you can tell
Mm-hmm.
that they dedicated so much time into it that they just needed to use
Exactly.
it.
Yeah, yeah. See, like I said, like if you, the whole gimmick of the game is to kind of like do that thing that is new. You're gonna probably cut on so much other stuff. So, and that this is what I'm saying. Like from software, they've always been reiterating and improving. For the most part, by changing some things, and it's always been fresh. But when you go to a game like Assassin's Creed, it really infuriates the fact that they continue to do the same game, but hardly they put something new. So they had so many games where they could implement revolutionary stuff because they have the people that work on them, they do a great job. But they know that people are going to still buy it, and so they don't care about doing something new because they don't have the passion to push the boundaries. They have the passion to just get more money, and that's what bothers me. And luckily, my goodness, good thing that From Software is not like that, at least for now. Yeah, there are some shortcuts here and there, but they're still justified many times because you're making a game that is so ambitious. So I understand if there's some things that are not could have been done better. But for me, the experience with Elden Ring, for example, was just amazing. Like yes, if you play the game too much and I don't know, you only have that game and you played it for 2,000 hours. Of course, you're gonna see the mistakes and the repetition. But for me, it was like an experience of probably 120 hours, and because I didn't play it too obsessively, it felt amazing. I didn't see too much of the repetition. I saw some of it, but it wasn't that glaring. But again, big studios that are selling a lot, they don't care about revolutionizing stuff and bringing new stuff. Even Nintendo does it now because with Tears of the Kingdom, they did exactly that. They perfected the game, they perfected the game, and then they added a system that is just gives so much space for creativity, which is the being able to create stuff. It's so fresh, and it's amazing. But luckily, the whole game is not only that. The game is strong, as a base because Breath of the Wild was already strong, and on top of it, there's this added creativity, freedom. So that's the way to do it. You learn with the experience, and then you improve. That should be the way, not just repeating the same thing because it sells. But hey, you know how it goes.
Yeah, money, am I right?
Yep. Exactly.
But yeah, I think that's a really good way of putting it. Lots of people play it very safe today, and it makes sense from
Yes.
you're investing so much money in it that it's too big to fail. But,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully the culture of the gaming industry will change to recognize that that's not necessary. Like, we don't need these massive multi-million dollar games that are like in like 5 to 10 years of development to be finished. Like, I would rather take 10 different games that took,
Mm-hmm.
a tenth as long and didn't need that budget, and they all had the
Mm-hmm.
courage to do their own thing.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I think Mortal Shell was kind of, I haven't played it, but I saw that it among the many Souls like, it was trying to do something more unique. And even like Life of P seems like to go in that trajectory. So I can applaud that.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of the rise of the indie industry is really helping, I think, because you get
Mm-hmm.
like all of the new technology is allowing for people like small 2 to 5 person teams to make these really phenomenal games. Like Hollow Knight is a really well-known one because it's derivative and inspired from Souls and its
Yeah, I
atmosphere and
love it. I
setting.
love it.
And then it takes all
Yes.
all of this stuff from the Metroidvania series, and it's just great.
Yeah, seeing that is like a Souls like, it would be almost like not insulting, but just kind of like it's a shame to say, oh, it's just a Souls like. So, no, it's just an amazing game that is such a nice atmosphere and ideas, and it's special. So saying that it's a Souls like, it's very, yeah, it's kind of like you could say, well, if you like Dark Souls, you might also enjoy that. But to reduce it to something this like that, like a phrase like that, would be like a Souls like it. Yeah, I don't know.
No, I
It's
mean
just
that's a
unique on its
valid
own. It's
thought.
special.
Because, like you say, it's unique. To say it's one thing,
It
to
is,
try and
yeah.
label one group onto it, like takes away from the other aspects and how you discuss it. And
I
yeah,
think maybe Hollow Knight, like I said before, like there's this kind of Japanese. I wouldn't say that it's a game that is very Japanese, but to give an example, Ori and the Blind Forest, I haven't. I played just a little bit of it, but the way that it treats, kind of like the somber moments, it tends to be very, how can I say, like very Disney-like, where it's very clear that a moment is sad, you know, and then there's a moment, in the game that is more kind of happy, and it's very clear, and that's the Western way of doing stuff, where it's very clear the intention, the violin starts playing, and that it's sad. But in Hollow Knight, everything is somber. It's the Japanese kind of sadness kind of ingredient, of dark, that everything is shit all the time. And so those precious moments where there's a little bit of levity, I think levity is the word, right? Levity. They feel more precious. But in Western games instead, it's always like, oh, sad moment. And then there's like a magical, happy. But Japanese games, Japanese developers, they know how to just kind of like balance the moods in a way that is very subtle. And so you're not like beaten on the head like, oh, you need to feel sad now. Because even in Dark Souls, when an NPC dies, there's no music. You're like just taking in their dialogue, and they are maybe bittersweet. It's all subtle, and it works so well because it gives you the time as a person to elaborate your emotions and make your own emotions instead of being beaten in the head with a fucking violin. Oh, you need to feel sad. To me, it's almost annoying. Not to say the Ori and the Blind Forest is bad, no. It's just that to me, many Japanese games, and even Hollow Knight seems less Western in that way. It works so much better with me, at least for
yeah.
me.
No, I totally get that. Like nuance is really important in
Nuance, yeah.
storytelling. And like you can get I feel that. Like it's annoying to feel like you're being told to feel a certain way. It's like
Mm-hmm.
if I was supposed to feel this way, the story should be making me do that. Not you
Yes.
using sad music and colorful like a color palette.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's deceiving it's almost like you're trying to like play upon human like cognitive bias and like instincts,
Yes,
and it's
yes.
like please don't manipulate me that way.
Yeah, don't
Tell a
manipulate
story.
me. Yeah, but that's the thing, right? When it comes to animations, it can be also difficult because I am trying to make stuff that is funny. But in my case, my way of judging if it's funny, I don't like, for example, memes too much. Because memes are kind of things that they come and go. And it's easy to make someone laugh with memes because everybody is like, oh, that's a meme. So I don't like memes personally that much. But what is my meter for deciding if a joke is good? It's if it makes me laugh. So if it makes me laugh, then I think it's good to put it in the parody. Of course, it's not gonna make everybody, all of people, laugh, but it's just like my honest. It's me giggling like an idiot. So to me, why would I change it to make it into something that is not me? And so to connect it to what we just said, if I put like a goofy music during the joke, it's like, no, please, no, don't make it like obvious and stupid. Like, yeah, that's kind of like, it's very cringe and kind of forcing emotions or whatever is that emotion, if it's sadness or if it's a joke. Like the perfect example of this is the laugh track. Laugh track is terrible. Like nobody uses laugh tracks anymore because they're just terrible. Because you're like, oh, this is the funny joke, and it's just like, no, please stop. It's terrible.
And like the joke's not even funny half the time, and you're just left like, okay. It's like
let's
well,
put just a left track. It's, yeah, if you go back to one of those shows, it's mind blowing how there must be someone just clicking on a button like, oh fuck, every moment, like they say, okay, so I'm gonna back to the store, ha ha ha, and they laugh, and they're like, what the only one that has a laugh track that I love, that I will always defend, that is fantastic, is the IT Crowd. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's like a British show from probably 2009. So I guess, it was still kind of old-ish. and that it was basically like a Big Bang Theory kind of show, but it was way better because it was way funnier in every aspect, because it was basically made by people that are actually nerds. But Big Bang Theory is made by corporate people that are, or not really nerds. Is made by kind of pseudo geeks that think that they know what nerd people like, But
Yeah.
instead, the IT crowd was made by nerds. And so that's why it's funny, Yes, it has the laugh tracks because it was shot, in a studio, but it's still super funny because, again, the idea behind it is honest. It's not like, oh, let's write something to appeal to the nerd people, It's like nerdy people writing a script because they wanted to write a silly script. That's what makes it honest and funny.
Yeah, yeah, like Big Bang Theory is like, haha, look at these nerds, aren't they dumb? And
Nerd
then the IT crowd is
references,
like,
yeah.
haha, we are nerds, aren't we dumb? Like,
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Like you nailed it. Exactly. Absolutely. You couldn't describe better myself, honestly.
but yeah. Yeah, I think we're getting, this has been like an hour and 50 minutes, and I know that you have plans
An
to
hour and 50 minutes.
stream.
Wow, wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
flew
I'm gonna
by.
stream. I'm gonna probably eat something soon, and then I'll probably stream like in 40 minutes from now. Probably I'm gonna stream some Elden Ring because I'm trying to do like a no-hit run of the bosses.
Ooh.
It's been a doozy. I'm using like a shitty katana instead of like the typical kind of no-hit weapon that it does a lot of damage. But it's been so cool. I can't wait to go to. I still have to fight Moog and Melania, and wow, it's gonna be. Ooh, I
Yeah,
can't
they
wait.
sound like does Moog's Blood Flame, if you walk on that, that counts as a hit, right?
Yeah. So
That's
I need to
evil.
get like a concoction that then disables the countdown. Apparently, I need to craft that concoction because otherwise I would get hit. Because I don't do enough damage to kill him fast as the other no hitters
Yeah.
runners. So yeah, I need to do that. And honestly, the experience was that Maliketh was really hard. It took me probably 3 streams, and Placido Sex was actually pretty hard because his last phase when he does the lasers, they're fucking terrifying. And I finally did it after I think 3 streams of each one, maybe 7 hours, or maybe a little bit less than that. Malikat is extreme. Malikat was crazy difficult because second phase he goes just insane and you're scared. You lose your shit, and he was already intense in the first phase. So second phase, you just kind of like lose your mind. You have to really know where you can stay, because he does like some kind of like a swirling kind of somersault. But in actuality, you can stay next to him and it doesn't hit you. So once you know those things, you can manage him. But other than that, it was panic mode. And I
Yeah.
have a feeling that Melania is gonna be pretty tough.
Millennia's I don't even fight Millennia like casually just because of how hard she is. So I bet that's gonna be
Oh man,
insane.
I actually no, I would do it, but I didn't have like when I was working on the parody, I didn't have time to play the game much except for this no hit run that I've been doing this no hit run on Twitch for the last like 7 months because I don't have time usually to play games that much. So the only thing that I would play is the stuff that I do on Twitch, between the animation streams that I do. So spliced in between, I would do the no hit run, and I actually beat Millennia only one time, basically. So I can't wait to do it again because I only did it once, and it's been like 9 months. So I can't wait because I think I like Millennia. I think it's a cool fight. It's very dynamic. Yes, it could be done better, but I'm really excited to fight her. So I don't agree with you. maybe I'm gonna be super. How do you say? I'm gonna eat my words because I'm gonna get my ass handed to me for like, oh my god, for 60 hours. I hope not.
No, I mean I respect that, and I am so happy to have a Millennia enjoyer on the podcast. Cause like that's great. There's not
There's
enough of
people that
you.
shit. Oh my god, really? I heard another friend of mine the other day saying, "Oh, Millennia fucking sucks." And I'm like, yeah, but there's something about it that like Millennia is unique still. It's very unique, you know.
Yeah, no, I love her boss fight from like, like the music is so fitting for her fight in both phases. The gameplay is very
Mm-hmm.
intense. It works so well as like, Radahn is the greatest warrior general. He's fighting on a
Mm-hmm.
battlefield. He's got the high poise, the sweeping swords. But then Millennia is like a
Mm-hmm.
duelist. Her power is in her like single
Yes.
target offense. She has like the
Mm-hmm.
Ashina flowing swords. Everything about her is just super cool. I just like
Mm-hmm.
I have this measure of difficulty in games where like if it's too difficult, I just get burnt out. And like I like difficulty,
Mm-hmm.
like I beat Elden Ring. Well, I didn't beat it. I never beat Radigan. But I did Elden
Oh
Ring
wow.
at rune level 1. So like I didn't level up. I beat Malekith that way. I actually had that same realization, stay close to them, don't let them
Wait.
intimidate
So,
you.
by the way, so wait, you said you haven't beat Radagon ever, or in
No,
Soul Level One?
only until level 1. I've gone
Whoa.
to New Game Plus like 11 on Elden Ring just because I listen to podcasts and like to do something with my hands or like audiobooks and
Wow.
but
Okay, so that's amazing.
well, thank you.
Congrats. Wow. Ah man, I should try that at some point too.
I
That's
recommend
amazing.
it. I think it's Elden Ring is actually it's like New Game Plus 2 to New Game Plus 5 is actually sort of easier if you get like a build that uses buffs. By the time I got to New Game Plus 5, I
Yes,
was
yeah.
using Golden Vow, Enchanted, Godskin Noble Rapier. It was very
Mm-hmm.
devastating. And if you use that with a
Mm-hmm.
shield, you can literally poise through boss attacks up until New Game Plus 4 until they do too much for the stability. And it's
Yeah,
like
that's the thing, right? I forgot to mention that I never use shields, so that's why I was talking about Bloodborne being more up on my alley because I could say for certainty that I never use shield in all the Souls game. I know it's stupid to just think about it. Now that I would never use because I think I'm very kind of basic. Like that's another thing that is funny to me is the fact that what you see in my animations, it's exactly the character that I was using, and I always use like the long sword, kind of fucking general like knight. Yeah, it's the in my parody of Elden Ring, the character you see there is the one that I used with the falchion. So I am basic as fuck, but I never used the shield. I think I used just the turtle shield against Melania to study her attacks, and then I
yeah.
unequipped it to do it the way that I wanted to do it. Not that it's not legit to do it with a shield, because I mean the game, it you should use the ashes and you should use the shields because it's fun.
Hmm.
It's just my type of fun, I'm used to doing in my way, so there's nothing wrong about doing it differently using magic. Actually, I would like to do a very different playthrough with a friend of mine soon, where I use magic because it's different vibe.
Yeah, I like mostly agree with that. Like shields they're cool. They're very useful. They're overpowered in the sense that being able to block damage by just holding L1 is insane, and not
Mm-hmm.
enough bad players
Yes.
realize that. But
Yes.
um, like I'm right there with you. Like I will in older games, I'd always be two-handing, or I'd keep a catalyst in my offhand so I could cast
Mm-hmm.
spells, just because it's more dynamic to be able to like if you roll away from a boss and just blast them with magic, that's so much more
It's
satisfying
awesome.
than putting up your shield.
Yeah, and in fact, to tell you the truth, now that I played in that with that playstyle for such a long time, I actually want to change. I want to do a playthrough with Magic because I haven't fucked with it forever. So I'm like, man, I kind of want to do like a astrologer kind of type of build, in Elden Ring and play it completely differently. So I'm excited for it, and the game is all about doing stuff the way that you want, personalize your character. It's just that I was just used to do it like that, but this only opens up more fun for me. I can't
Yeah,
wait.
absolutely. I hope you enjoy yourself. It's a lot of fun.
Thank you. I can't wait. And now I'm gonna have a little bit more time because honestly I'm in the process of like writing the new parody, so I have a little bit more time and I can play games a bit more because I basically haven't played any new games, anything for like the whole production of Elden Ring. So now I have the time to just play a little bit more games, and I might do a playthrough on my own of Elden Ring where I do a very different character.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a nice way to like get back into it without punishing yourself with a no-hit run.
Yeah, I hope that even if I use magic, there's some kind of aspect that make it interesting. I think the bosses also they have good. I'm not saying everyone, but they have good ways to punish, even ranged attacks. I hope so.
Oh, absolutely. It's
Hmm.
basically like in my opinion, everything up until Morgot is, training wheels. It's like the first two parts of the game. Then
Hmm.
Morgot he's very fast and he's got punishing tempos, but he doesn't do enough damage and he doesn't have enough health to really be a super threat to anyone that's like power leveled.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
once you get past Fire Giant, like the enemies are like, almost like 50% faster, if not twice as
Yeah,
fast.
it's
They are,
crazy. It's a crazy kind of leap.
yeah.
That to me is a little bit of a flaw in a way because I like to have more coherence. But yeah, I can imagine that many people that are not into that were not before into Souls games, they might feel weirded out. Because honestly, my only big problem with Elden Ring is Godskin Duo. Because Godskin Duo is the two bosses. I would say that the apostle, the skinny one, is one of my favorites in the game to fight. But the two together, they're just terrible. They're just like fucking no, you don't do that. If you put the two bosses together, remove some of the moves that they have of their move set, because otherwise it's like you're having Coke with Fanta. No, you don't do that. So to me, it was really frustrating, and I can imagine that someone playing the game, because I have also a friend that is playing it's his first Souls game, and I'm saying, dude, yes, use magic, use the ashes, because there's gonna be a moment in the game where you're gonna be, gonna eat shit because the game is not really well balanced in Farum Azula. And yeah, Godskin Duo, I hate it. I
What was
have
it
no
in your
words about
video?
it.
Just like you were smashing them in the trash can or something like that?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, no, absolutely nothing. Like I didn't even want to acknowledge them because look, in the sequel now I will do the parody of each one of the god skins because individually they're good, they're fun. I would say that the apostle is better, the skinny one. I enjoyed it way more because the other one has the rolling bullshit that never ends. But they're
Yeah.
great bosses. But together it's just like, yeah, you can do that, but remove some of the attacks that they have, because otherwise it's just like putting, I don't know, like a chocolate cake over another chocolate cake with some chocolate, and you have to eat it with a chocolate fork. Is not the right way to mix the ingredients. You have to kind of balance it, and I don't understand why the game is still like that. They didn't even patch it to make it better. It's a big flaw of the game, but other than that, it's an amazing game. I have to
Yeah.
say it's fantastic, and I think that the DLC, oh man, they can go crazy with the magic stuff. I have no idea what they're gonna do, but they have so much creativity they can do. I can't wait.
Yeah, neither can I. It's gonna be very cool, I imagine, no matter what we get. But
Yes.
like, it's like I get everything that you say about like the latter half of the game, and like there was a huge pushback
Hmm.
when the game released. Like people really were not
Hmm.
happy with it. They were even saying it was like unfinished and stuff. Lots
Oh
of
boy.
stuff going around. But like honestly, I sort of it's a controversial take, but I don't like the Godskin Duo, but I sort of love the latter half of the game because of how intense it
Me
is,
too. Me too. Actually, I wouldn't say that I don't like the last half because Godfrey is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, even Gideon. What do you think about Gideon? I think well, your name is so Gideon half knowing is your username. So to me, Gideon, many people just hate him so much, And to me, because it's kind of different. But you know what? I think the reason why I like it is because I don't do much PvP. So to me, it feels different.
Yeah, I think that could be part of it. I think a lot of people like they
Mm-hmm.
meme on him. He's a very easy fight if you have multiple people or if you're overpowered, especially on New Game Plus
Yes.
regular. But anyone that goes through the game at level 1 or at New Game Plus 7 knows that Gideon's sort of hard as shit because he two-shots you with
Cancer.
almost everything. And I sort of appreciate
Cancer.
that. Yeah,
Mm.
because you spell spam in the video. That was so funny to watch. Um,
Yeah, like and even in my no hit run, like it was like a crapshoot. The only way that I was able to kind of like kill him after a good long stream of tries was to kind of like stagger him in like a succession, like doing a little bit of like a footsies and then blam, and then footsies and then blam, and then he got into a corner and just fucking killed him, like I shanked him basically, like mercilessly. But that's because I kind of, you know, glitched him, quote unquote. But yeah, if you do it normally, it's a fun boss because it just kind of like tests your all the things that you learn, I guess. So to me, it's kind of cool, you know. Yes, if you, I don't know, a lot of people that do challenge runs, they tend to be frustrated, and I get it because I went there too. I didn't know hit run, and I was frustrated. But other than that, if it's a cool fight to me. I don't know.
I agree. I think that that's where I come from with like everything in Elden Ring. Like I get why people might be unhappy with some of the gameplay decisions, but then
Hmm.
I'm like the gameplay is the medium to depict the character and their story, and Elden Ring does it almost perfectly with like every
Mm-hmm.
boss. It's just so impressive. Like Gideon, like
Yeah.
you said, if you try to run at him, if you try to like smash your head at him over
Hmm.
offensively, he'll punish you really hard for it. He even has the law of causality, which like explodes if
Yes.
you hit him too much. And
Yes.
in that way, he's very similar to Emma the Gentle Blade from Sekiro, where if you're over
Yes.
aggressive with either of them, you basically kill yourself, and that's the point of the fight.
That's
It's just
true.
it's really cool. I'm
That's
very
true.
impressed by that.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, that's such a good analogy to that boss. Yeah. Oh man, you wanna make me play more games? I'm like, oh, I need to play. Oh god, especially Sekiro. I did a little bit of speed running with that. Not really speed running, but just kind of like trying to finish the game kind of fast, you know, like in 2 hours, and I was able. I think I finished like the Severance ending in like I think it was 1 hour and 45 minutes, something like that. So I was like pretty proud, you know. And yeah, so I got to taste a little bit of the kind of speed running kind of rush, you know. And I think I died only to Ishin one time, and then I got up, kicked his ass, and I was like, oh, yes, I did it. So amazing,
Yeah,
amazing. They're all good games. They're all great games. That's the thing, right?
that is definitely the thing. I would not have been playing them this long if I did not like them as much as I did. Like,
Yeah. And one last thing I wanted to ask, like about Armored Core, I don't know much about it. I'm kind of confused. Like, I don't even know if I like it. Well, what do you think? If I can
um,
ask.
it's like I haven't really played many of the older games. I tried
Yeah, me
emulating
too.
4 Answer and 5 when I heard the 6 announcement, and I liked what
Uh
I
huh.
tried, but like it's also very clunky. They're older games, and
Right,
I
right.
almost think that Armored Core 6 is going to still have some of that clunkiness, just because like the
Mm-hmm.
mobility of the mech is part of the difficulty of the game. So like
Ah, I see.
I don't think that they'll go too far into it because movement and mobility is very important to game feel, but like I do expect
Mm-hmm.
some of that. And like that's where you get the whole worry, are all of the Elden Ring players gonna be too spoiled or whatever to like get into it? And like I think that's like a very like overreactive take to it, but I
Mm-hmm.
think that some people will have a negative reaction.
I
I'm
think
sort
I
of
think to
hoping.
me,
I'm hopeful though.
yeah, yeah, I don't know. To me, the world has to be interesting. If they can make it so that I'm like actually interested in navigating through the world, and the gameplay to me just has to be, I suppose, you know, like not frustrating. You know, if it's not frustrating and it flows well, that's great. But I need to have that atmosphere, you know, that kind of world that I want to explore. You know, because like Mass Effect, for example, I loved it. You know, despite the flaws, obviously. But if Armored Core, the new one, has something that makes you go like, I want to actually explore this place, to me that's good enough, you know. But for now, I've seen some gameplays and stuff, and it's kind of cool, but I still need something more to convince me, you know. But we'll see.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference in the exploration aspect is that it's like much more level segmented, like even more so than
Mm-hmm.
Demon Souls, where you have an
Oh
overworld
wow.
map that you select from, and you get like different like
Mm-hmm.
little descriptions of the missions, and they give you the plot, and then you go onto
Okay.
the level, and like the levels can be pretty large. I expect Armored Core 6 will have larger levels than any before, but like um, obviously
Mm-hmm.
these won't be like interconnected segments of an overall level of
Yeah,
an
yeah,
overall
obviously.
world, and I don't think that they'll be like there's not the same pickup system from what I know. Like
Mm-hmm.
you unlock blueprints from missions and you buy stuff in an armory. So,
That's kind of cool. Yeah, that's kind of cool.
mhm.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like Ace Combat. I played Skies Unknown, the Ace Combat 7, I think it was, where you kind of build your loadout. So I can fuck with that. I think it's cool, but yeah, if you can find the blueprints, that's kind of like finding a new weapon, so we'll see. I think could be something that I like, because I
Yeah.
like kind of mecha stuff, and I not love mecha, but I still like it, so we'll see.
I'm in a similar though. I know I'm probably gonna buy it at release unless it like has
Mm-hmm.
terrible functionality, but like I think I'm
Yeah,
definitely
yeah.
gonna like it because I'm not a huge fan of
Hmm.
mecha, but also I love Evangelion and stuff like
Oh my
that.
god, dude! We would have another pod. I could talk for that other 2 hours. Evangelion was one of my biggest anime when I was a kid, and the fact that it was humanoid, that it was not just a mecha, was the best thing about it. It was weird. And
Yeah.
if it was just a mecha, like for example, yeah, I think it's really good Gundam, but it's not as dear to my heart as Evangelion, because Evangelion is just special, to me.
It's a very potent deep dive into depression. I'd totally be up for another
Yeah, it's a lot
episode
of
about it.
psychological. It's but psychologically very, very complex. And I'm gonna rewatch it probably soon. I think it's gonna hit so much harder now as an adult, because the last time I saw it, I think I was 16. So it's gonna fuck me up pretty hard. But hey, yeah, it's the beauty of those anime. They're not just kind of like pew 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 mecha. They're more deep than that. And that's the same for Dark Souls. At the end of the day, the reason why I play Dark Souls is not because it's just another medieval generic game. It's way more than that. It's way more deep. It makes you think. It makes you meditate almost. And that's what I like. There is not just a genre kind of cliche. That's what for me is very important.
Absolutely. There's an artistry and a human emotion to it that you can really feel just by playing or observing, and it sticks with you more
Hmm.
than like a pulpy thing does. I'd recommend that
Yes.
if you get back into Evangelion,
Hmm.
if you haven't watched them already, there's like the rebuild movies, which retells
Yes,
the
I
same.
saw.
Okay.
I saw two of them. I still have to watch the other two. I think I watched them
Yeah,
in 2009, but then I didn't watch the new ones because there was like they still had to come out. So then I stopped. I forgot, but I have to go back to them.
I had the same experience. I just had that chance to get back to them like 6 months ago, but I'd recommend
Ah,
it. They're
wow.
pulpier, but I like them because they almost have a like a you can tell that the creator Hideyaka I can't say that name. Anno.
Hidetaki Anno. I think it was
Yeah, there
Hidetaki
we
Anno.
go.
The name, yeah.
Thank you. But yeah, you can tell that he's matured in a way, that his feelings on Shinji's plight, the
Huh.
depression that he felt, has
Interesting.
like evolved. And like, there's like
Ooh.
behind the scenes stuff. I can't remember the YouTube channel I watched. It's like Steve M or something, but he has a really good behind the scenes about how that
Ah,
sort of
okay.
evolved. It's all very interesting to me.
Yeah, you need to send me the link. When I watch it, I'll also check out these kind of behind the scenes stuff, because I love behind the scene content. So
Yeah,
I'll
absolutely.
definitely watch the remade the last two.
Yeah, I hope you enjoy them in that
Mhm.
case. They're
I hope
very
so.
fun, very
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. I think also it's tastefully done. Like the 3D is not too obvious and tacky. At least in the first two, it was tastefully done. So I think it's gonna be. It's a nice remake. That I can accept that. Rather than trying to make it better, it kind of goes in different directions. So I can dig that.
Yeah, I like. Oh my gosh, this would if we got into this topic, it'd expand it so far. But like, there's such an interesting thing with like adaptations and remakes, where you can either try to
Oh
be as
boy.
faithful as you can, or you can try and
Yep.
take it in your own direction. Because obviously, you as a new
Hmm.
creator have a vision that you can add and build on it. And I almost prefer that secondary part, like the
Mm.
iteration rather than the replication, I guess.
Yes, yes, I agree. I agree. Yes. And then you have weird examples like the Demon's Souls remake, where they kind of like reinterpreted in a way that was kind of not in line with the original idea, kind of like thinking, like feeling it was a weird kind of like filling the gaps with different things. So I think this is more even true of games, because of the dated graphics. You can interpret something that is kind of like more less detailed, and be like, oh, maybe what they wanted to do was this, but maybe you're gonna be off, because if instead you redo like an anime were pretty detailed even, in the 80s and 90s. If you can even like, argue that they were even better done, more refined than the stuff that you see now, because they use a lot of, shortcuts and 3D stuff. So in the case of games, sometimes it's difficult because people say, oh, before it was just like a cube, that castle. So now we have to put so many details that maybe they're not what the original creator intended. It's still pretty impressive and cool. It's amazing, what they achieved. But I heard many people saying that, oh, the castle, many of the design, the mood of the game is off. I can judge it on my own because I haven't played the remake yet, but I heard some people saying that. Even like the expressions of the characters that before were kind of subtle, now they're more obvious. This guy is like up to no good. This other guy looks, like there's a boss that has like a grin face that's grinning, and before it was like covered. So you don't know what this expression actually is. Which is more creepy. So all these changes that they made, yeah, they can be kind of problematic. Yeah, I don't know.
No, I agree. It's like sometimes when you try to replicate something and sort of add to it in that way that doesn't fully comprehend what they were going for, there can be like a loss of
Hmm.
tone. Like I think the Made in
And so,
Estrella
yeah,
music is the best example of that.
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah. I heard of how they. I remember how the kind of comparison. So, like you said, I think when the creator, after many years, wants to kind of like I don't know, like use new technology to kind of, if it's the original creator, I think you're probably in good hands. Unless he's a piece of shit and he just wants to make money. But I don't think it's the case for Hidetaki. No, wait, Hidetaki Anno,
I
the
think
one
that's it.
for Evangelion. I think
Yeah,
it
I mean,
was it was an
Evangelion, the
honest.
rebuilds are sort of cash grabs, but like you say, there's more to it than that. And like you should,
There's more
like, you
to it,
have to
yes.
respect the hustle. I mean, like, he's rolling in dough. You have to
Hmm.
love him for that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. In a way, I would say that, yes. I don't know. Like, honestly, yeah, it depends who you are in that moment of your life. If you think that maybe Evangelion didn't, like the original work, didn't express things in the way that you feel, like you mature in your life and you see things differently. So maybe he felt like, for some reason, the arc of the character was not a representation of his true intentions. So maybe while doing something that is commercially, gives him some commercial success, he truly wanted to tell a story that was more, that filled the gaps in a way that was more satisfying, that made more sense. Sometimes, deadlines can make you do mistakes, and also not really do things as you wanted to do them. Happened to me even, I had to just finish the parody because, yeah, I wanted to meet the deadline, and I could have done better some dialogues. I could have refined some stuff even more, but I just had to. I was losing my mind. I had to finish it because I was just obsessing so much, and I was like in the shower thinking of stuff to change, and please just leave me alone. I just wanted to end this obsession. So especially if you work with a company, you're probably even more of a stress of like meeting a deadline, and if you have to, what is the term, compromise your vision, it's heartbreaking. So maybe like doing like a revisiting something sometimes can be a good opportunity. When you are more stable, you have more of a independency, it makes you able to fully express yourself. So maybe that's one of those cases.
I think that's definitely part of it. Like the last two episodes of Evangelion are wonderfully, like, they're just insane, but they're like
Hmm.
that because of budget cuts. They ran out of money. They couldn't be animating like full scale
Yeah.
fight scenes or anything like that. And
Yep.
that's why we get End of Evangelion like a year or two later
Yes.
that actually fills out the need to do that. And
Yes. 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 Those were weird as fuck,
they
but
were super weird.
do they? Well, I don't want to spoil myself, I guess, but I'm just asking. I'm just kind of wondering if the movies kind of like incorporate some of the. Don't give me like a too detailed response if you can, but just tell me if they incorporate some stuff of the end of Evangelion.
Um, Not exactly the movie. I think it sort of goes. I'm trying to remember because like I don't have so good of a memory of it, but like it doesn't. It's like It's almost like because the timeline changes, the end of Evangelion as a plot event is sort of like broken up into multiple
Mm.
things that happen across multiple times, if that makes sense. And
Oh boy, oh
it sort
boy.
of explores like the first two movies are very much what happened during the anime, with
Yes.
the ending of it being a bit off the rails with something new developing. And then the third
Uh-huh.
one and onward is like from that new development, things are really messed up and a lot of crazy stuff is happening, but it still gets into that really
Okay.
like psychological deep dive, like where like they're
Yes, yes.
talking to themselves in their heads and stuff like that,
Yes.
you know?
Interesting. Interesting. I can't wait to actually watch it now. I need, people kind of telling me, they're passionate about something and they recommend me to check it out, because I tend to be kind of lazy and not explore some stuff. But thanks to people that tell me, with passion, look, this is good. Now check it out. I'm definitely gonna check it out. So thank you.
Well, yeah, I'm happy to be able to provide that. um, yeah, okay, but like I don't want to keep up too much of your time, so
No, it's
I
okay. It's fine. I'm definitely gonna go eat something now because I'm hungry though.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you for joining. Is there anything
Oh
you just
man.
want to like shout out about your channel or your like online profile before you like get going?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for this opportunity. Like it was so pleasant. You're fantastic as a host. So thank you for having me. It was so nice. Like
Oh,
seriously,
it was my
and
pleasure.
it was such a good conversation. And yeah, all I can say is that now that I published the first parody for Elden Ring, of course like I can't wait to do to show my vision of Millennia and all the others. So I am working on the sequel, for Elden Ring. The title of the parody I've not revealed it yet, but it will be something. It will be something pretty funny. Even just the title will be like, okay. So I'm super excited. I can't wait to reveal more stuff. I will probably do like a proper announcement maybe next month. But I'm already working on it. I'm doing the storyboards. I'm writing the script. And even when I was working on Elden Ring itself, of the parody for Elden Ring, I was already kind of planning the next one because the video was so long that I had to cut stuff out, because there was no space to fill everything. Because otherwise, it would have been like an hour cartoon. It's already too long, So when I was working on it, I realized, well, I'm not gonna put every boss. There's no way, So I decided to take my time and do a episode after, So that's the one that I'm working on right now. And yeah, it's gonna take the usual couple months, maybe 6 months to finish it. But I'm excited for it, so I hope people look forward to the sequel of Elden Ring. And yeah, there will be a lot of stupid jokes and even maybe some more dramatic moments, because I want to make it kind of dark, the second chapter of the parody. So yeah, I hope people look forward to that. And yeah, and I thank you again for the opportunity.
Yeah, of course. Thank you again for joining. It was very nice to get insights like this, and it was just a very pleasant conversation, like you say.
Thank you so much. Thank you again so much.
Okay, and that's the episode. Thanks again to Matthew Shezmen for so kindly guest starring today, and thank you to the viewer for watching as always. I'd like to once again shout out the upcoming AMA on the subreddit r/Elden Ring discussion, which will take place on October 13th, links below. Besides that, I'd like to thank any listener that stayed with me through the year-long duration that this podcast has gone on for. I've taken a bit of a longer break between releases than usual lately because of burnout and life things to sort and, all that. But I'm trying to make a proper return to podcasting in the upcoming season, so hopefully this will be the first of many episodes to come. Well, that's about it. So, as always, thank you for watching, and don't you dare go hollow on me.